Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now, like a thief in the night. I'm here. The key is under the welcome mat. The alarm is off, and Reuben is at the kennel. Should be no issue getting inside. Neighbors? Out of town. What time does John arrive home? He's working late, then going to the gym. You have time. For your sake, you best be right. I'm not looking to go back in the pen for some petty crime bullshit. Just get the file off the computer. Easy, easy. Then why haven't you done it yourself? You know why. Yeah, we know. Are you in yet? Yes. The office is down the hall and to the left. Don't turn on the lights. I'm not a fucking amateur. Shit. What is it? What happened? Nothing. Just some asshole left boots lying in the middle of the hallway. John isn't the best housekeeper. Really, you don't? He keeps his other laptop in the third drawer. Got a problem. What? It's locked. Got a key? No, but he's not that creative. Look around the desk. It's gotta be around somewhere. Gum wrappers, crumpled Post-its, pile of receipts. This guy is a hoarder. I know, but he's the only way in. Yeah, so you've said. Listen, the boss doesn't take kindly to liars. No lies. This is legit. Your funeral. You're a funny guy. You know that? Now shut up and find the key. I said you had time, but let's not chance it. Seems to me I'm taking all the chances. Once you find what we need, I'll give credit where credit is due. Think I found something? Is it the key? Does it work? Got it. But we have another problem. What problem? Just open the laptop and find the file listed as hobby. There is no laptop. Drawer is empty. Shit. He must have it. Why on earth would he take that shit to work with him? Think he's on to you? Nah, I'm the least of his worries. Better think of another way. Boss isn't a patient guy. I know. Just give me a minute to think. Shit, this was the best way. We don't have a minute. We got company. No, can't be John. He's still at work. Sure about that? Positive. His tracker says he's sitting at his shitty cubicle as we speak. We're good. False alarm. Just some idiot lost and used the driveway to turn around. Fuck, man. You had me worried. Look, here's what you're going to do. First, need you to lock the door, then break a window. I'll arm the alarm. He'll get the call and come home. Wait him out. When you seize the opportunity, get the laptop. I could just kill him. No, you can't just kill him. What are you talking about? Just stick to the plan. Hide, get the laptop, find the file, and get out. Never good at hiding, but I'll see what I can do. The door is locked, ready for the broken window. Say when. When? Hell. What happened? Cut my fucking hand. You wearing gloves? Can't just be leaving blood all over the place. That's how people get caught, asshole. I'm not an amateur. Of course, I have gloves on. Been doing this longer than you've been alive, you snot-nosed yuppie. Just keep your trap shut. Shit, the alarm didn't go off? What a damn surprise. Another problem. Just a sec. I need to shut off the power and reset it. Stop fucking telling me and just do it. All right, get ready to cover your ears. 3, 2, 1. Aw, fuck, that's loud. Hide, hide, hide. Turn that shit off. I can't. John needs to be notified. Hurry up! I'm going fucking deaf here. Hold on. You hold on, you asshole. Alarm is blaring through my fucking eardrums. When I get a hold of you, no one will recognize you. I'm going to take my fucking time. My knife will dull and need sharpening between breaks. All right, John is on the move. Shut it off. The company will in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to kill you. Don't forget to hide. I'm in the closet already. Ran in here after the alarm went off. John is en route. Fantastic. So, boss is calling. Going to join him on the call. Boys, we have the file yet? Not yet, boss. What's the holdup? This entire operation is a total fuck-up. This yuppie has us chasing our tails. He's a fucking liar. I'm not lying. The file exists. How was I to know he would bring the laptop with him? He's been your mark for months. Gentlemen, gentlemen, enough. I want that file. Yuppie and my guy is the best. No one better to lift sensitive material than him. Guide him best you can and let him do his job. Yes, sir. Yes, boss. Good. Talk to you boys soon. You are such an asshole, yuppie. Me? You're the one trying to get me killed? Oh, I'm not trying. I'm going to kill you. You'll forget all about maiming me when you get that file. Not maim, kill. As in murder. Yeah? Well, that will have to wait, because John has arrived. I'll just kill him. No, just be patient. He's in the house. Remember the plan. Wait him out. Once you see an opportunity, take it. We can't leave here without the file. I don't know how I ever got tied up in this. I mean, you get a little behind in your bets, and next thing you know, you're babysitting some asswipe for the boss and breaching intel. The file is there. I know it is. He just went in the bathroom, and the shower is kicked on. I'm taking my shot. Don't kill him. Wait. Shit. I'm a dead man if we don't get that file. I have a sure thing in play, about to make a huge payoff. This can't be the end for me. Got the laptop. Looking for the file now. It's named Hobby. Go it. Transferring. 30%, 50%, 75%, 90%, 100%. We got it in the clear, yuppie. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Don't thank me. I'm still leaning towards killing you. More importantly, I need to get this file to the boss, who will be pleased to own hard evidence against this freak. Good job, yuppie. You may just live after all. I suggest you no longer take bets. Hell, get out of the game altogether, or else the boss may find more work for you. And if you don't deliver next time, I'll see you at the funeral. Goodbye, for now. Wait, don't hang up. Aw, yuppie. Hail Mary. The man lay prone on the edge of thick woods, sighting down the scope of a 30-06 hunting rifle. Snow flurries melted on the back of his neck for an unknown reason, and mixed with the smell of pine and gun oil, the phrase "veil of an endless winter" entered his mind. He shook his head. Poetry is the vice of fools, he scoffed. Through the compressed distance, the telescopic lens thickened the falling snow, proving the chalk house a quarter-kilometer away, a miraged dream. A woman came out on the porch, centered in the crosshairs. As if something caught her attention, she glanced quickly in the man's direction. She studied the woods for a long time. They stared back at one another, she in the glass from opposing distance, he a foreign and ominous presence. He stripped off his camouflage clothing, his muscles taut. After switching out to jeans, a black polar tech, and civilian hiking boots, he broke down the rifle, then wrapped the sections carefully in white cloth. He stuffed the bundle into his knapsack. Before he tied up the pack, he pulled out a clear plastic sleeve containing a yellowed file. Within it, he flipped through multiple pages, stopping at an aged copy of a driver's license. The photo, a man with long white hair. He tapped the image, his forefinger protruding from a fingerless leather black glove. He then said out loud, "Gotcha, you son of a bitch. Do you have food?" He asked the woman who answered the oak plank door. She was gaunt and scanned over the man's head to the woods. She's beautiful, he thought. Is she 35 or 50? She looked the man over. We can give you food for work, but not long. Okay, what are you? I'm Tavi. No, I mean, what are you? Bannock. I'm Bannock. Did you come from Twin Falls? The reservation. No, no one comes from there anymore. We need you to bury cattle. Can you do that? Yes. Days went by, and the man slept in the barn and spent his time chipping at frozen ground, digging holes, maws in the earth. There were over 50 carcasses in a field, bloated and gray-white. The work didn't bother him. It took his mind off remembering the night the white flash struck the horizon, safely at home, a Netflix series on TV. His wife was reading in a pink robe, his son in his bedroom. His first thought was, why didn't I ever buy a gun? The impact wave struck the house, sweeping it away as easy as fine cutlery off a table. And as luck would have it, leaving him without a scratch, but alone. Sooner than he could have ever imagined, he was arrested by men coming to his tent in the camps. "You're a terrorist," accused the broken and terrified faces, neighbors he'd hugged at Christmas parties. The only way to prove he wasn't the enemy was learning how to fire a gun, learning how to point a finger at other people, learning how not to feel anything, while passing ash-laden bodies, hanging in nooses. How can I live with myself? He'd ask the ghost of his wife. You can't, she'd say. Just come home. Yeah, he cares nothing about us. You're too young to understand, the old woman said to the boy. And why should he care? He'll slit our throats right here in the kitchen. The old woman, her daughter Faith, and the boy were eating dinner. Faith cut ribs, separating the bones by hacking at them with a meat cleaver. The boy's face glistened badly, where on one side his flesh lay in white, scared rivulets. Just stop, Faith said to her mother. He's only 12. No one spoke for over a minute, while the old woman stared at Faith cutting the meat. He's scum, you know? Only an Indian would bury livestock for a living. With her elbows spread wide, her pincered teeth darted back and forth, pecking small pieces of flesh. A white bone in her greasy skeleton hands. What makes you so sure he's trouble? Maybe he's been sent to help us. Now you've got the sickness to think that. I don't imagine we need to worry he'll kill us while we sleep. Do you think that? Really? Damn right I do. That's exactly what he'll do if we're not careful. Faith's mother spit out a piece of pink grizzle. Your brother will be back soon. He'll tell us what to do. What's that? The boy called from the porch. Tavi held a football, flipping it in his hands. He threw the leather ball to the boy, who fumbled and dropped it. I'm not very good, the boy said. Sure you are. Pass it to me. Tavi moved away from the porch. The boy was thin and moved like a young man, and Tavi's face grimaced, remembering a day when the sky was blue and fall leaves yellow and red. I only dream in color, he thought. The boy threw him the ball. Better, you are good. Now you run out. The boy hesitated, moved off the porch, and jogged out 10 paces. Throw it, Tavi. Go way back. Tavi held the ball high in a poise, like a statue getting ready to launch the ball. Holding the stance, and with a radio announcer's voice, he said, Listeners, he's going out for the big play, still 2 points behind. Will the Saints have a last gasp to win the game? Tavi braced himself. He's throwing a Hail Mary. The crowd roars. The boy ran well into the yard, and Tavi threw deep, the ball arching through the gray sky. The boy reached his fingers and bobbled the ball, tipping it up into the air. It then fell into his arms. Score! The boy hero wins the game. The boy's smile broke broadly, and he came back to the porch. He handed the ball to Tavi. There's no more football, but there is. We're the proof, aren't we? I guess. But it's not the same. Tavi put his arm around the boy's neck. He pulled him close. Laughing, the boy hugged Tavi. Tavi winced. He burst out, crying. Just go in the house, will you? Go, damn it! The boy cowered, his eyes wide. He ran to the house and slammed the screen door. Soon Faith came out, but Tavi was nearly retuned to the barn. "Is this what it's come to?" she asked herself. "Am I so desperate I'd let my son be abused by a stranger who barely talks? No. Even with your life stripped away, you still have something. Your son. He is the only pure honesty left. What keeps you alive." She plodded to the barn and then leaned against the barn door. Tavi's shirt was off, and he was pumping water into a bucket. Scars covered his back like lost highways on some map no one used anymore. "You don't yell at my son," Faith said. Tavi glanced up. "I'm sorry." "What's your problem?" "Nothing. That's not enough. If you want to stay, you need to tell me." "It's nothing, okay?" "What? Tell me." Tavi put his shirt back on. "Jason reminds me of my son. It's hard for me, that's all." A minute passed. "I'm sorry, but that's still no reason. What did you do before the war?" "I worked in a fishery near Stanley. We would spawn salmon and release them into the river." "Why would you do that?" "We would count the few that returned. They traveled hundreds of miles from the ocean to get back. The lake is called Redfish for when my people lived there. The lake was red with the fish." "Do you think there's still fish?" "I don't know, but I'd like to find out." "They say the deer may have returned also. Some elk. Life is still out there. People survived. Just luck in my case, Faith. Bad luck. Maybe something else. I don't believe in anything but luck. But you don't know, do you? Maybe there's something else other than luck." "That sounds like a stretch, Faith. I used to think we're meant to leave something better for those to follow. I don't believe that anymore." "Something better for those to follow?" "We didn't do such a wonderful job, did we? What about you? Is there anywhere you'd like to go?" "I'll stay here. My brother takes care of us. Food, fuel. Without him, we'd be in a camp, I suppose. You'll like him. He'll be here in a few days." Tavi reached out and touched a place on Faith's cheek. He caressed her with his fingers, then reached behind her and braced the back of her neck. He showed no emotion, like stroking a cardboard box, his eyes curious, remembering. Finally, Faith said, "It's been a long time. I've aged. You might not. You don't know who I am, Faith. My advice is to run." They stood facing each other. Then Faith began pulling away. Tavi gently held her neck. Finally, Faith leaned in and grazed Tavi's ear with her lips. "There's a place for you in the house. There's still room. At least for hope, isn't there?" Tavi woke from a dream where he was wearing snowshoes in thick snow over ice. He was breaking trail, and his wife was behind him in a red winter jacket. The sun was bright, and she laughed at something he said. With a grunt, she broke through the ice and then clawed at the edge where the hole had broken through. She soon slipped under. Tavi stripped off his jacket and dove into the hole. As he pulled down with his arms into the ice water, his body felt numb, but he still kicked his legs with everything he had, swimming deeper At last, the red jacket was just beneath him, his wife reaching to him from below in the pale light. "Swim, damn it! Swim! Grab my hand!" Faith lay next to him in the dawn white of winter. She was shoving his shoulder. There are men on the porch. As Faith and Tavi came downstairs, they saw two men talking to the old woman. One man towered over her. He wore a Kevlar vest and leaned in. "We've got him, so this is a simple trade, if you think about it." The old woman held a small pistol in her hand. "Jesse, take your boy and get off my property." The younger one moved to go. He wore a vest also, but both the vest and the camouflage clothing didn't fit. More clown-like than threatening, Jesse scowled down at the old woman. "You telling us you don't want him? He's my son. You think I don't want him?" The man put his hand on the big revolver on his side. "You give us what Joe told us you have, or we'll start carving on him. We aren't in high school anymore." The screen door squeaked, and Tavi came out of the house. He stood by the old woman's side. Tavi glanced at the AR-15, auto-fed, that the younger man had slung over his shoulder. It dangled on a lanyard. Jesse glanced at Tavi. "Who the hell is this?" "You get out of here, now," the old woman said. The two men walked away, and Tavi and the old woman went back into the house. They gathered in the living room with the boy and Faith. "Why didn't you shoot him, Grandma?" asked the boy. He went to the window and peered through. "That's Jesse Rollins." "Yes, it is," said the old woman. "Now move away from the window." "What did they mean by saying they have Joe?" Faith asked. The old woman checked the handgun for bullets. A small .22 pistol. "They have our Joe, holding him out there. But I'm not giving them anything. It's all we have keeping us from a camp. You can't imagine, Faith, what Joe says is going on. He's family. It's a trade, isn't it? I'm just doing what he'd do to us. He's as dog-eat-dog as I am, and knows how it is." Tavi entered the room, carrying his pack. It was full, his feet heavy on the wood slats. The scoped rifle was strapped in a sling over his shoulder, and he wore camouflaged fatigues. In front of the old woman, he said, "I'll be needing your pistol." The old woman grabbed for the gun, but Tavi held her wrist while he twisted it out of her hand. He then tucked it in the rear of his pants. The boy had tears in his eyes. "Tavi?" Tavi went to the window. He stared for a long time, and then, in a quick motion, he turned over the yellow pine table on its side, dishes shattering, and dragged it to the window. He grabbed a chair, crouched on the seat, and lay the rifle barrel on the edge of the table. Leaning into the scope, the staked-out man 50 yards away came into focus. It had stopped snowing, and the crosshairs remained steady on the man's head, resolute and sharp. The man's hair was long and white. "There's your humanity," the old woman screamed at Faith. "You see it now, don't you, darling?" Tavi lifted the rifle. "Jason, come here." He dragged over another chair. I'm going to go out there and draw those men out of the woods. When you see the smaller man come out with the rifle, he intends to kill me. Do you understand that? You shoot him, okay? Don't think about it. Just pull the trigger. Here, place your eye on the scope like this. Do you think you can do it? He passed the rifle to Jason. Yes, sir. Tavi slowly crossed the yard to the edge of the clearing. He approached the man on the ground. The boy crouched at the window. Come on, come on, come on, he mumbled to himself as he steadied the rifle, bracing the stock with his shoulder. The old woman paced behind him. You can't shoot, squat. She shoved Jason and put her hands on the barrel. Give it to me. Jason pushed her away and sighted again out the window. Tavi came to the man staked down. He was moaning in the gray ash snow, his face bleeding and bruised. Long white hair streamed down his back, matted and wet. Tavi stared down at him and prodded him with his boot. Do you know who I am? The man on the snow stared back at Tavi with blank eyes. Tavi reached down and cut him loose, and the man rose and staggered towards the house. Jesse came out of the woods. What are you doing? Where's our trade, big man? Tavi stood up. I'm the trade. Me for him. We'll take you, him, and anything they've got, Jesse said. Plus, we'll step in where you left off with Faith, you might say. The old woman jostled Jason, tugging on the barrel. Give me that thing. Again, Jason pushed his grandmother away, jerked the rifle back, his whole body shaking as he crouched behind the scope. He took his eye off the lens to wipe the sweat out of his eyes. Give me the gun, damn it, boy. The boy thrust his body against the old woman, and she sprawled to the floor. He put his eye to the scope, put the crosshairs on the man, and pulled the trigger. Faith heard the click of the gun, and with the empty sound, her heart thumped. Just once, like her insides were collapsing hard in her chest. Jason dropped the rifle, ran to the door, and then stood on the porch. Tavi! His arms flailing, he leaped into the yard. No, don't! Faith screamed. Don't you go! Jason ran towards Tavi, his legs driving through the snow, white bursting around him, the ash kicking up underneath. The younger man squinted at the lunatic boy, whirlpooling his arms, coming straight at him. A howling apparition from hell, scars red aflame on his face. He lifted the AR-15 to his shoulder and swung the barrel. Tavi grabbed the rifle and threw his back into him, and with both hands, he forced the gun toward Jesse, who screamed as jackhammer bullets stitched across his belly. The younger man was behind Tavi now, and he felt a blade slide into his back, slick and deep, the pain piercing to his spine. He fell away and turned as he hit the ground and reached the pistol behind his back and fired into the young man. Tavi dreamed. The water was deep, a pure crystal blue. He pulled with his arms, and kicked as hard as he could to fight, to descend. He tasted salt. And then his wife was there in her red jacket and broad-faced smile, reaching to him from below. The water was warm as he went deeper, so very warm. She stretched to him, her face with such a smile. "Grab my hand," she said, and he did. They began swimming against the current. Search, and you might find. Search, and you might find. I am an independent journalist, living in a world of news spilling out at an unprecedented rate in the history of mankind. Much of it was false, without any factual evidence. Lies and untruths seemed to be the norm. Each morning, when I opened my computer or picked up the mail, it took a good hour to sort through the garbage. Today, I had a pleasant surprise. An invitation from an old friend to spend a quiet weekend in his country manor. It was about 2 years ago since I last saw him at Penelope's wedding. We had a bet their marriage would not last 5 years. As far as I knew, she was still married. But she remained a very demanding woman. At the university, I had been a very close friend of George Webster. He was now Sir Webster, a member of Parliament. He was a pleasant chap with a head of white hair and a round, chubby face with distinctive blue eyes. He had a corpulent body, no doubt, from hearty meals and plenty of drinking. His wife was quite the opposite, with a slender profile and reddish hair arranged like a beehive on the top of her head. She had a wicked sense of humor and was always enjoyable company. I was looking forward to a quiet weekend in the country. I arrived an hour before dinner to face a manor built 200 years ago. George inherited it from his parents. I remember the parties here when we were students at the university. His parents were great hosts, always inviting a selection of pretty young girls. I believe they wanted to make sure George meets the young people they approved of. George came leaping to the front door and hugged me with great affection. "I will get the maid to show your room. No need to dress for dinner. We will only be us 3. Come down to the drawing room in half an hour for cocktails." While George handed me a whiskey, I warmly embarrassed his wife. Nothing had changed. The beehive on the top of her head was still in place. I am always delighted to be served at dinner with good food and stimulating conversation. His wife left us the moment an excellent cigar and cognac were forthcoming. Once George's cigar was lit, he spoke. "David, do you remember that time at the university I taught you how to catch butterflies?" "Sure I do." "Why are you still an ardent collector and improving your collection?" "If I remember correctly, you were obsessed with butterflies. Bring your cognac and come with me. I want to show you something." We went down a small passage. At the end was a locked door. George took a key from his pocket, opened the door, and switched on a series of overhead spotlights. I have never seen such a beautiful show of hundreds of butterflies with their vibrant and delicate colors. The room was about 26 square meters, with waist-high side oak cabinets surrounding all the 3 walls. The upper 3 walls were covered with 3 large frames of magnificent pinned butterflies. I could see each frame was labeled with the title of 3 continents: the Americas, Europe, and Africa. I stood there, bewildered, completely stunted by the beauty of the room. As I walked in, I noticed a large, comfortable couch in the middle of the room. It was unusual in that it had 2 sides, allowing one to change their position in order to view all sides of the room. In front of each side of the couch was a coffee table. I turned around to view the wall in which the door was positioned. The wall was covered with a wall-to-wall library. George suggested we should sit down. As you notice, I specialize in rare butterflies from 3 land masses. You will notice there is a gape of 2 butterflies in the Americas display. 1 the European and 2 on the African. Under each butterfly, I always mark the date and place it was found. According to my book collection and extensive research, these butterflies represent extremely rare spies. I like to think it is one of the world's greatest collections, representing hundreds of hours of travel and research. To be complete, I need to fill in the 5 missing specimens. George, it is totally amazing. The display of these remarkably beautiful creatures makes one feel belittled when compared with the creations of nature. What's in the drawers below? More butterflies that I thought were interesting on my travels, searching for that rare specimen, as I am known throughout the world as a collector. I have a network of people that inform me that they have seen a rare butterfly. The world has many well-informed amateurs interested in these creatures. In fact, last week, I had a call from a friend in Zimbabwe saying that a flame-bordered carex had been sighted near Victoria Falls. This is one of the extremely rare butterflies I am missing in my collection. Unfortunately, at this time, I cannot leave for Victoria Falls. David, do you want a free 2-week holiday in Zimbabwe? I don't understand. So, well, you could go and spend a few days looking for this rare butterfly. I know you are very careful in netting butterflies without damaging them. The whole trip would be my expense. Supposing I did net this rare butterfly, how would I get it out of the country? No doubt these creators are protected by strict export laws. You are right, and collectors like me have to be very careful. In the case of Zimbabwe, I would ask you to deliver the specimen to a friend in the capital, Harare. He will then carefully pin it into an old collection of common butterflies that Victorian families love to collect and frame. He will then ship it out to a London antique dealer. This rare butterfly, mixed in an old frame, will go unnoticed by the customs. I can see you are well versed in extracting these treasures from various countries. I have never been to Victoria Falls. They say it is one of the world's spectacular sights. If I agree to go, would there be somebody there to meet me? Yes, my contact would meet you at Victoria's airport and take you to your hotel. He will be your guide the whole trip. I suggest you spend 2 days as a tourist, and then the next 8 days exploring the forest where the butterfly was sighted. If not found in 8 days, take the plane back home. If you, by a miracle, manage to capture it, I ask you to fly to Harare and give it to my friend there. At this point, I recommend you fly home from there. If an overnight stay is required in the capital, my friend will arrange it. These trips are always a gamble, but to add this butterfly to my collection, it is worth the cost of the gamble. We collectors are brain-damaged human beings, obsessed to complete the items we collect in a satisfying and logical manner. Of course, I will supply all the necessary equipment. You will need to consult your doctor about a trip of this nature so that he can supply you with all the necessary preventive medicines. No visa at this point is required for Zimbabwe. So are you game? Just a minute. Let me look at my diary. Yes, I think I could go next week. Is that a yes? I will need 24 hours to make a decision, as I have some commitments next week. If you do go, I suggest you go through Johannesburg and then on to Victoria Falls. Leave the return ticket open, as you might want to fly back through Harare. My man, his name is Robin, born near Victoria Falls, will be with you your whole time in Zimbabwe. It had been several years since I was last in Africa. My knowledge of the various countries on the continent was mainly in the north, so to travel to the south would be an interesting venture. As I sat enjoying a first-class meal on British Airways, it did cross my mind that maybe George had already planned my visit before I was asked down for a weekend. No doubt, his thoughts were that a free trip to Victoria would not be turned down. I also realized dedicated collectors will employ any means available to achieve their ambitions. In my mind's eye, I could see him spending evenings in his butterfly room, completely transfixed by the beauty of these creators. No doubt this room is where George found a haven of peace from his responsibilities of his daily existence. These butterflies not only were creators of extreme beauty, but represented for George a lifetime of dedicated research and traveling to far-off lands to find the rare specimen. At the university, he had always been an avid butterfly collector, but I never realized the depth of his passion. I remember enjoying myself on various county outings, looking for interesting butterflies. Now, in an artful way, he has got me involved. He must have thought I might be smitten by the activity. The truth of my interest in this trip was Victoria Falls. Naturally, if by some chance I found the rare butterfly, it would give me a warm feeling of self-esteem. As the air hostess passed, I ordered a glass of champagne and toasted to my success. The African journey had begun. First to admire the falls and to search for the missing rare specimen. Johannesburg Airport was vast, obviously with no restriction on land constraints. No doubt copied from the American and European textbook. You had to walk through large shopping malls filled with many life-size copies of wild animals made out of various woods, clay, and other materials. Sizes and prices for all comers. For a second, I had a vision that this extensive animal kingdom became alive and started to enjoy the sweet human flesh of passengers awaiting planes. Interesting thought, but a chilling turn of events at the airport. I found Robin waiting. The first thing I noticed as we drove towards the hotel was the soft and seductive African daylight with a warm weather that seemed to envelop you in its arms. Also, through the car window, I was able to admire a series of magnificent trees unique to Africa. About 10 kilometers from Victoria Falls, we turned up a small country road to the hotel. There, I found a little patch of paradise. It corresponded to the photographs shown on the internet. Only 16 bungalows that stretched from a central lodge. I was curious to see the rooms that were described as about 150 square meters with bath and showing facilities. Lounging space with a king-sized bed area protected by a mosquito net. The first time I experienced sleeping under a mosquito net was in Barbados years ago. In those days, it just hung over the bed and needed pulling down. Of course, I was unaware of this procedure. The next morning, I had just one big mosquito bite. Funny how certain circumstances, you quickly learn to use things properly. Back to the hotel, the entrance hall and lounges were decorated to an ambiance of yesteryear. Spacious, elegant, and tasteful. The smiling staff treated me as if I had just come home after a trip up country. I had a vision of wearing riding boots, putting my feet up, and asking someone to pull them off. Before I was taken to my room, we sat down with a cup of tea. George's man, Robin, explained why I was here to take photos of butterflies for a London magazine. Before the shooting commenced, we would take 2 days to see the falls. While drinking our tea, the hotel's hostess kindly explained that to walk the length of the falls is a 2.4 miles walk with several stops to admire the view. Also to dry out from the spray and mist generated by the falls. As it was the rainy season, the falls would be near their maximum flow of 2,800 cubic meters of water per second, as opposed to 300 metric cubes in the dry season. We decided to visit on the first 2 mornings. Now to the room. As we entered, I had the feeling of being introduced to Zimbabwe under British rule. This was the state of play. Everything and everybody has their place. I walked through the room to the balcony at the far end, noticing on my way a bar full of all the drinks imaginable. I opened the glass screen windows to experience the Africa of one's dreams. It was a small valley running down to a water hole. I quickly realized the hotel was on a slight rise, protecting it from the multitude of animals slowly grazing their way to water. One could not ask for a more idyllic view. I was to spend a few hours on this balcony, just observing the animal kingdom, going about their daily lives. The room was delightful and serviced with all the facilities to make your stay a pleasing memory. I had a bizarre feeling that for the privileged, Africa must have been a very pleasant place. The next morning, heralded by a dawning sun, breakfast on the terrace with interesting choices of food. Robin drove me to see the falls. 20 minutes drive, we were in the Victoria Falls, parking after being heralded by African folks dancing at the gate. Armed with waterproof capes, we set off towards the falls. The first encounter was the noise, the next the spry, and then through the trees we saw the watershed. It is a sight so awesome, it literally took your breath away. The beauty, the palm hour, and the light and mist reflected from the cascade of water is frightening. I was inspired to write a poem in acknowledgement of its beauty. I knew a magazine in London that might be interested in publishing it. The Falls, Victoria, Zimbabwe. On the horizon, across those vast lands, I saw a wispy sight of mist raising for the earth. No apparent panic from the wildlife. A fire, it is not. The nearer I get, a rainbow arching is beauty skywards. Then I heard the rumbling sound like thunder. There, covered in spay, is a mystery and magic that unfolds. Gigantic, awesome water falls from majestic heights, falls in torrents of spectacular proportions, careers deep into the river below. The beauty of the falls is in its majestic power, a never-ending cascade of turbulent water. This power dominates your mind and soul. Torrents of water flow through your veins. You are left exhausted and on occasions wet from the spray. One feels very small, experiencing nature's magnificence. The original explorers never saw the falls from the air. The mighty river in its majesty is a glorious prelude before it turns into the eternal beauty of the falls. One visit is not enough for the tranquility of your spirit. The second visit, the falls were shrouded in mist and stray. Then, by the hand of God, the curtains opened, all her power and glory exposed to the naked eye. In bended knee, you threw your arms to heaven in admiration. We spent the next day at the falls. Their splendor and magic had the same force of attraction as the previous day. On our third day, Robin took me to the forest where the charakt had been sighted. There were plenty of butterflies, and I practiced catching a few. When I let them go, I enjoyed watching them fly into the magnificent trees. Robin was most amused. He told me he had spent many days with George, chasing butterflies. It was my fourth day in the forest, after spending many hours walking and watching the constant movement of these colorful creatures, that we saw the butterfly that George hungered for to complete his collection. There it was, on a branch, enjoying the evening sun. I took a deep breath, moved slowly and quietly forward. All my practicing of using the butterfly net paid off. George had provided me with a special prepare box to keep the precious creator in. That night at the hotel, we had an excellent dinner with champagne. The next morning, we left for Harare. Robin and I found with difficulty George's friend in a scheduled part of the capital. He was a taxidermist, owning a store full of the various wildlife found in Zimbabwe. Once, he saw the butterfly that George had already contacted him about his face lit up with excitement. I never thought you would find it. Incredible. My friend George will be in seventh heaven. Later that day, I said goodbye to Rodin and gave him a handsome tip for all his kindness and help. Sitting on the long flight to London, I thought about my little adventure. 2 days as a tourist, visiting one of the world's great wonders, was like a dream. Then, a few days tramping through the forest, searching for a rare butterfly, had the thrilling flavor of the chase. Completing my mission was a very satisfying end. 3 weeks later, when picking up the morning mail, I noticed a letter from George. He told me everything was in order. There are no words to thank you. When you have a moment, come down to see us. He enclosed a handsome check for my intervention. David Nutt, December 2024. Ambition. Arms up, the man said. A smile touched my lips, and I did as I was told. I knew that I'd fucked up. There was no denying it. This meeting was a formality, not a death sentence. I lifted my arms lightly above my head. My suit coat hung along my shoulders like torn-back sails. The man patted me down, unholstered my gun, and tucked it along the back of his waistband, and I looked at him with a questioning glance. The nerve of this one, I thought, but remained silent, smelling the wafting cigar smoke pouring out of Father's office. You'll get it back when business is concluded. This your only piece? He asked, sizing me up. I nodded and tucked in my shirt along the waist again, shimmied my pants into a better position. The man stood aside, gesturing for me to enter. My hand wrapped around the brass doorknob, and the thick wood creaked inward, and all at once the smell of Father's cigars hit me harder than a ton of bricks. My eyes watered, Making my way inside through the haze reminded me of the night we went down to the docks to pitch the body of Lenny Chesnetter over into the dark water. Not me, Lenny's voice echoed in my mind. I didn't do nothing. I swear it. Nothin', I tell ya. The gunshot always sounds louder when it isn't you pulling the trigger. I entered the lavish office, my father sitting behind his desk like an old king at his throne. And to the chair along the right of the desk, my brother, turning his head to look at me. Even for all the years since the day of his automobile accident, I can never get used to the sight of that scar. A jagged line running along the left temple toward the middle of the cheek. Have a seat, Father said. I listened to my shoes clacking across the hardwood, listening to the sounds of the door shutting behind me, but didn't have to look back to know that the man outside had done it. Other scents were mingling in the air, Father's cologne, as well as my brother's. One of the housekeepers had set up a bouquet in this dark room, as if it had seemed to mask the constantly wafting cigar smoke drifting up toward the ceiling. It didn't. I found the open chair to my father's right diagonal from his spot behind the desk and took the wide way around, pulling the chair back so that the three of us now sat almost in a perfect triangle. I did this because whatever bad water had been spilled between my brother and me, I wasn't in a fighting mood. Maybe it was the Irish in me, some instinctual thing to wanna fuck strange women and fight all the goddamn time. My brother scoffed at this, gusting his air, and flapped his coat back to the center of his torso, over the velvet blue vest beneath. A single gold chain clipped to one of the buttonholes. The same pocket watch I gave him for Christmas 2 winters ago. I sat with ease and crossed my right leg over the other. Let's get down to it, boys, Father said. Which one of you did it? There was silence for a moment. My brother and I exchanged a glance, not saying a word. All right, if that's how you want to do it, he said, pulling back one of the desk drawers and withdrawing a Colt 1911 .45 semi-automatic pistol. He thumbed back the hammer and pointed at me. Which one of you sons of bitches killed Jimmy Booker? Oh, you think I fucking did it, do ya? I asked with a sneer. Go on then, shoot me, get it over with, I said, resting my hands along the armrests. In truth, I didn't give a shit one way or the other. I looked over at my brother, trying to read his expression, but he sat there with a calm that I'd only ever seen a few times before. For once, I was the loose cannon here. For once, I was the one losing my mouth, when what I needed to do was shut the fuck up. Why don't you point the gun there? I said, pointing at my brother. He's always the one stirring up problems in this family. Put one right between his fucking eyes and let's get this thing over with. The sound of the gunshot was deafening. I flinched at the recoil, and to my amazement, realized that I'd still been alive. My eyes widened as a smile crept onto my face. I looked at Father. The gun had been pointed upward, and the muzzle drifted a thin line of smoke from the barrel up to the ceiling, where it mixed with the wafting cigar smoke. "Are you fucking crazy?" I asked, sitting forward. My foot dropped to the hardwood floor with a thud. "You know how many coppers walk these streets?" I asked, squinting at him. "I own the cops," Father said with a smile, and set the gun down atop the desk there, where it sat pointing between both of us, and not at one of us in particular. Father picked up his cigar and gently rounded the ash from the lit end, brought it to his lips where he bit down lightly, perching it along the corner of his teeth. "I'm gonna ask you both again. Which one of you did it?" he asked, drawing on the chewed bit of his cigar, with a wash of gray smoke drifting down from his parted lips. His wrinkled eyes studied us one by one. "Does it matter?" my brother chimed in. "That guy was a crook. Bookie or not, he's been stealing from us for years." "Not us," he said. "From me. And I know that he's been doing it. But what both of you don't know is that Jimmy Booker has been fixing bets for the better part of the last 2 decades. It was only a matter of time before we took the hammers to his kneecaps. But I would have let him live. You smug prick." Father leaned forward and stared at brother. "Scraps. That's what he took from me. Scraps. Like a dog. And one of you 2 numbskulls whacked him before I could set him down and get the truth out of him good and proper." Father sat back. "Besides, nobody gets snuffed out in this town without my saying so. Not even my dumb fuck, petulant rat children, prancing around like they're doing the Lord's work." "Is that what you thought you were doing? The Lord's work?" He slammed his fist down along the top of the wooden desk. "Killing a man in broad daylight. 2 days before the race of the fucking century." He stood quickly, the chair behind him falling back as he towered over the desk in front of us. "Do you 2 idiots have any idea how much fucking money I was going to make off of that race?" "55 large," I said. I knew I'd seen the books. "How much money did you take him for, anyway?" Father asked, pressing his knuckles down along the top of the desk. "How much money did you recover from Jimmy's safe?" "All of it," I said. "How much?" he asked again. His pupils were so large that you couldn't see the blues there anymore. Only the blackened coals for eyes where color had once been. "We're wasting time," my brother said absently. He had begun running his fingers along the scar across the left temple beside his eye. He did this, of course, an old gambling tell of his, when he bluffed. "We had another bookie lined up, south side, Giovanni's man." My father was stunned into silence. He turned and picked up his expensive leather chair and set it upright once more, collapsing into it. Let me get this straight. You killed my man so that you could use the Italians. Do you think because we have some truce with those Goombas, you can take out one of our own and fix bets with another organization? Looks like you boys are trying to run this family. Father rubbed his eyes, his cigar still perched in his teeth along the corner of his mouth. He breathed in deep, the cigar cherry lighting up the inside of his palm, and he pulled it from his lips, curling an index finger around it, wet and gnarled. His hand perched along the armrest, a thick line of smoke wafting from the end of the half-chewed cigar. You boys will be the death of me, he said with his eyes closed. He turned to look first at my brother and then at me. What gave you smartasses the bright idea to fix bets with the Italians? My brother glanced at me and then back to Father. Because it's our time to move on their territory. The Italians are weak. They lost 3 good men to bank robberies, another 2 to the bombing last month. My father's eyes glinted. Between the 3 of us, none of us saying the thing there beneath the surface. That father had been orchestrating the bombings. There had been dozens in the months past. He'd been killing off the Italians from whatever shadows that he'd been operating in, beneath the guise of a truce all this time. The bombs that had been planted, the coppers tipped off about the bank robberies, was only a fraction of the work that had been done. Explosives were planted in engine rooms, aboard steamers, docked in Boston Harbor. Prized fighters dying suddenly from arsenic. There was a level of depravity not spoken of within this room, and between the 3 of us, nobody had said a word. Why, Jimmy? Father asked. Why in all of this did you take out my very own fucking bookie? I sat forward, an elbow cocked behind me along the armrest. Because Jimmy wasn't who you thought he was. I stared across the desk. My brother shifted beside me. Jimmy wasn't just fixing bets for you. He was fixing them for the Italians at the same time. He might have been taking crumbs from you over the years, but he's been raking it in hand over fist with the Italians for a decade or more. Jimmy is a distant cousin to the Giovanni Syndicate, married to one of our very own. How do you know all this? Father asked, raising an eyebrow. You're not the only one who bribes cops, Brother said. There was laughter then. Father sat back against the leather chair and stared for a time at the ceiling, running his thick fingers through his thinning red hair. Word on the street is Jimmy's been letting bits and pieces of information slip past our lines for years. How do you think the Italians were able to take the South Side so quickly? Father, puzzled by this, shook his head and sat up once more. He centered himself behind the desk and laced his fingers. He seemed to know without knowing. "What do you suppose we do about all of this?" he asked, looking at me. I looked at my brother, who finally smiled. "We know the name of their horse," brother said. "Consider it a parting gift from Jimmy." The next day had been one of the fairer ones of the season, almost pleasant. The sun was shining brilliantly overhead. I squinted through my tinted glasses, my cap tucked low over the eyes. I stood in the open air, smelling the vibrant scents of the women in attendance all around, their floral dresses puffed beneath the small of their waists like delicate flowers, concealing something even sweeter there beneath. My eyes moved across the sea of faces there, the onlookers waiting for the next race to begin, and with the gunshot that rang out, a few around were startled. But the next round of horses were padding down the track. Our horse wasn't among them, but was the next to follow. So I had little interest in this race, except for the equestrian appeal of horses galloping along their curved track, with each of their jockeys whipping their hindquarters in feverish gait. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. The leader among them, a tan beauty with a red-jacketed jockey standing above and hunched over the bobbing head of the horse that he rode. They crossed the finish line, the crowd erupting into feverish applause. "Ours is next," my brother said beside me. All was taken care of. I needn't bother with going over the morning's events, as I'd known well into the mid-afternoon what had transpired. Giovanni now lay along a cold slab downtown, the mortician sifting through the gunshot wounds that had been inflicted by the Tommy guns that took out their entire entourage as they approached their prize-winning horse, named Winn-Dixie. Our man inside had seen to poisoning Winn-Dixie with enough tranquilizers to kill a horse, to pun, but we'd be there to watch it as it happened. The horses had left the track, their riders collecting their wreaths of flowers before padding along the high walls to adoring and cheering fans. "You're certain it's been taken care of?" I asked, looking at him, my eyes trailing over the scar along the side of his face. "It's done," he said, without looking at me, feeling my eyes running along the course of that jagged line. I focused forward once more. "Father will be pleased," I said. There wasn't anything else to say. This was the first in many events moving forward. The decision that we were consciously making in a coup to take out our flesh and blood and run the organization the way that we saw fit. The world was moving right along beyond the cozy place that Father had built and remained. This was the world of the steam invention, industrialization, changing political landscapes, and even grander concepts that eluded Father. It seemed that in just an evening's pass, the world had left him there, a fossil amongst the living, and that no world would welcome his old ideals and aging perspective. I glanced at my brother now, not knowing how long he'd been staring at me. Both of us knew. When this is all over, you'll take the north, and I'll take the south side, he said. I focused my attention on the track before us and nodded. I would take over my father's estate, and my brother would take control of the Italians. Boston was ours for the taking. There was a long pause between us, waiting for the next race to begin. A stir of excitement amongst the onlookers. And then the gunshot came. The gates opened. Our horse, Lil Red 1, roared past the others. But at the third gate, Winn-Dixie trotted forward in hopefulness, keeping a fair speed at first before arching its head backward and falling onto the ground with its back legs splayed as it rolled to its side, knocking its rider from its back. Everyone jumped to their feet and stood watching the downed rider, Winn-Dixie, writhing in pain, kicking its legs beneath it as it lay upon its side, bobbed its head as it scraped gently along the ground there. Everyone around murmuring with feverish anxiety. Winn-Dixie, panting, kicked its feet a few more times, stopped, heaved, and let out the last of its breath. Lil Red 1 crossed the finish line in first place, without the other riders knowing what had happened. I glanced at my brother. The crook of a small smile touched his lips. I looked back to Winn-Dixie, forgetting all about our own prized horse winning the race, and stared with wide eyes in horror at the fallen stud with his rider knelt beside it. One small hand rested along the rib cage of the dead animal. "That settles it," Brother said. He turned to look at me, and I to him, finally, forcing my eyes from Winn-Dixie. "Pleasure doing business with you," he said, extending a hand. I shook it, feeling the embrace of my brother there amongst a crowded bandstand of race enthusiasts. For a moment, I felt the warmth of his hand, a subtle reminder of the man that he was, a handshake with someone that I loved, and then felt the cold and calculated business transaction that had just concluded. "Till we see each other again," I said. We parted there. He took his leave and mingled with the crowd beyond, making his way down the steps, rounded the corner, and was gone. That was the last time that I'd spoken to my brother aloud. Not long after the events of that day, my father had been fatally stabbed to death late one evening. Of course, this was part of the plan all along, though I had never been the one holding the knife. It was my brother, releasing us unto the splinters of this syndicate. It wasn't long before the fire started, as his men had been ordered to take out the Italians in force. The gunshots, for a time, had been frequent and unrelenting, often in broad daylight, but skirmishes clamored through the nights in those early days. Only rumors of these prominent Italian family members slain in cold blood, or that of the houses that had been burned in the early morning hours while they slept, cozied in their beds, My brother is always the benefactor, or presumed to have been. As I sat in Father's study, swirling a brandy, I'd not had the slightest care. My brother, unbeknownst to him, had been working for me all along, doing the dirty work with blood-stained hands, as the plans that I'd set into motion had finally come to pass. "Cheers," I said, raising a toast, the woman and the beast. Professor Manda entered the lecture hall, and the entire auditorium fell silent upon noticing her presence. She tapped the floor as she walked in her blocked purple heels, which complemented her purple and green Ankara dress. Her braided hair was styled in a small bun, and she adorned her normal-sized earlobes with silver earrings. She looked the part as she stood in front of the people. She was the wife, the mother, and the first woman professor in her town. She stood at the podium and leaned forward into the microphone. She began to speak. It is said that a woman of greatness never sleeps at night. In the light of day, she is loved and respected by all. But in the stillness of the night, she is haunted by her own shadow. She paused to pose a question. What happens when you take a woman from the land she walks on and place her in waters that could either drown her or feed her to the creatures of the sea? Taking a sip of the black coffee prepared for her at the podium, laced with a shot of Irish whiskey at her request, she savored the acquired taste and answered her own question. I'll tell you one thing that a woman I know did when she didn't drown or get eaten. She floated in the water for as long as she could. Eventually, she started to swim in search of land, even territory that did not belong to her. Her instinct to survive became desperate when she discovered a small island in the middle of nowhere. She fell asleep for a while, only to wake up to the sound of her stomach growling. Her mouth was dry from a lack of water, and her body felt heavy since she hadn't eaten for days. Despite this, one thing grew stronger: a desperate need to survive at all costs. The water around her was calm, and while her body was weak, only her eyes showed signs of movement. She dived into the water and caught a large fish by its tail. The fish struggled for freedom, but she was too quick, pulling it out of the water, depriving it of air, and sinking her teeth into its flesh. Days passed, and her life began to change as she learnt to survive in the wild. During the day, she enjoyed sleeping, but when the moon rose, her eyes shone brighter because it was time to feed. All the small animals glared at her, the heartless intruder who killed them with no mercy. She fed on their uncooked flesh and stored their remains in the cool ground under the trees. The woman destroyed the homes of other creatures to build her own, cutting down trees to make a house. She had crossed the line that separates humans from animals. She had become like one of them. Another creature in the world struggling to survive. The heat of the sun and the cold rain had not killed her. Her body was shaped like steel. Her muscles bulged. Her hair had grown wild, and her eyes resembled those of a mad woman. Yet, her need to survive had only grown stronger. This need had driven her out of her own humanity and transformed her into a beast. After all, who better than a beast could survive in such harsh conditions? With focus, the beast performed its tasks, replacing soft human hands with hard, strong ones. The brutal environment was suited only for a beast. Thus, she adapted to the harsh world that had transformed her body into that of the beast. One sunny day, the beast managed to push the makeshift raft into the ocean, battling against the waves as it sailed away. Looking back at the small island, the woman reclaimed what was left of her body and felt a pain in her chest. The hope she once had now returned in double amounts. Her raft sailed on the dark sea the entire night, but she was not afraid. While her vision may have been affected, her other senses were as sharp as a shaka's spear. In the morning, she could see the mainland in the distance. Hungry and tired, she thought about her favorite meal, enshima, cabbage, and dried fish. She remembered how her mother used to cook it for her, and the gentle voice that would wake her in the morning. Tears fell from her eyes as she finally felt human again. As she gazed at the mainland, she smiled and tried to scream, but her smile was crooked, and her scream was more of a whisper because the beast could neither smile nor scream. People looked at her in wonder, asking each other how the woman had managed to survive in the wild. They called her great and erected a monument in her memory. Books about her were written, and children learned of her bravery. Many years went by, but she never forgot her past because the beast's eyes would stare back at her in the mirrors of her house. She couldn't accept the fact that without the beast, she wouldn't be alive. The audience was quiet, expecting more of an explanation from the professor's strange story. Then she cleared her throat and took another sip of her coffee. As the hot liquid went down her throat, she said shakily, "Only losers drown in earthly miseries or die by becoming a beast. Sometimes, just sometimes, one has to become a nightmare in order to live in her dreams. And with that comes the consequences of that decision." There was dead silence after that. Then, after a minute, a faint clap sparked the whole crowd to applaud and finally give her a standing ovation. Professor Manda walked to a covered figure and unveiled an erected statue of her at the entrance of the auditorium. Many students flocked to her to get their copies of her latest book signed. The day felt long, and she was thankful it had finally come to an end as she entered her house at midnight. She staggered to her children's bedroom and saw that they were sleeping. The coffee had done its job, making her feel tipsy. She entered her own room and was greeted by her husband's loud snoring. As she stepped further inside, she took off her earrings and placed them on her vanity table. However, when she looked up, she suddenly screamed at the reflection staring back at her, finding Lucas. "He's in there. I know he is," said Mark to no one, kneeling behind a tree and staring through binoculars. He started to count. 3, 4, 5. I can take 5. This was only the people he could see, and he couldn't be sure that there weren't more. He'd have to wait another hour, then go in under the guise of darkness, or risk being caught. An hour was a long time to wait, when all you want is to be reunited. But if he wasn't smart about this, he'd die before he could ever help Lucas. 3 days earlier, Mark and his 6-year-old son, Lucas, were eating cans of beans by a fire in the desolate woods. They assumed they were all alone. And why wouldn't they? When you're living through a zombie apocalypse, you're almost always alone. Mark had been recounting tales about the boy's mother from before he was born. This only saddened Lucas, since he never got to meet her. She died giving birth to him, back when modern medicine wasn't hard to come by, and before the day of darkness, the name the survivors dubbed for the start of the apocalypse. Survivors was a funny word to both of them, since they hadn't seen a single other human in the past 6 months. The last human they saw met his end at the hands of Mark and his trusty 8-inch blade he kept strapped to his ankle. The red-headed drunk had stumbled upon the two of them while they were pillaging an already slim, rationed convenience store. Seemingly friendly at first, he approached them with a good-natured spirit. It turned dark very quickly when he elbowed Mark in the face, picked up Lucas, and made a run for it. Carrying a 6-year-old boy slowed you down mightily, and Mark caught up to him rather quickly. In the old days, Mark would have just tackled him to the ground and called the authorities. But that was the old days. Now, the only justice was the one you served up yourself. Mark stuck his blade directly between the drunk's shoulder blades, and he went down hard, splitting his head open against the pavement, choking on his own blood in the process. He had fallen on top of Lucas, but luckily, the boy had not sustained any injuries. No physical ones, that is. The trauma, on the other hand. Back in the old world, children were just that. Someone's product of love. In the new world, after the day of darkness, children became a commodity. This was because the disease that had infected humans and made them turn into the creatures we so eloquently refer to as zombies, affected 99.99% of children. Studies showed, this was when there were still studies to be had, that it only affected about 96% of citizens above the age of 15. This made children a delicacy, a chance to repopulate the world, one human at a time. A modern-day Adam or Eve. 4% of the world's population went unaffected, except for the after effects. After the day of darkness, everyone resorted to killing each other to preserve any food or shelter that still remained. For all Mark knew, he and Lucas were the only two people remaining on Earth. That's what he thought, until 3 nights ago. Are we going to see Mommy in heaven when we get there? Lucas asked, innocently. Yeah, buddy, Mark said glumly. We sure are. She's waiting for us. I wish she didn't have to be there. I wish she was here with us right now. Me too, pal. Me too. They sat in silence, listening only to the crickets singing their nightly ballad and the sound of the spoons scraping against the bottom of the cans of beans. But then, crack. A twig snapped. Mark's ears perked up, but then the silence continued. He glanced around, and all he could see was darkness. His eyes stopped on his boy, his sweet, innocent boy, who didn't deserve this life. He deserved to be a normal kid, to grow up with parents who loved him, in a house with a swing set and video games on the TV. Instead, they were always on the run, preserving their lives. A tear formed in his eye as he stared, watching that wonderful boy spoon a mouthful of beans into his mouth. His son made eye contact and gave a smile, but then his face instantly turned to a look of terror. Mark noticed movement in the bushes behind Lucas and assumed Lucas's terror was brought upon by noticing movement behind Mark. Before he could turn around to see, Mark was knocked out cold. He wasn't out for long, maybe a minute or two, and when he came to the group of pillagers were leaving, they had the boy hog-tied, and 2 burly men carried him like he was a pig on a stake. Mark went to jump up, but a knee met his back. At least he thought it was a knee. Instant pain struck him. He turned over to see the man's face, and that's when his world started to blur. He had a small knife protruding from his side. The boy's ours, motherfucker, said the gangly man who was missing 2 teeth. Go to the clearing now. Mark passed out. That had been 3 days ago. He had spent the last 3 days trying to follow the tracks of the group who had taken his son. He was slow-paced, having limited flexibility and immense pain from the gash in his back. The knife missed any major arteries or nerves, and mostly just caught the fat muscles. Still, the pain was excruciating. But Mark knew if he let too much time pass, the trail would run cold, and he'd lose it forever. Along with his boy, the tracks had led him to a small town. He found a tree to hide behind while he could scope it out. In his satchel, which he was fortunate enough to still have, he always stored his gear 50 or so yards away from his campsite, just in case. He had a pair of binoculars, which he took out and used to get a better view of the town. He knew he'd have to wait another hour or so until darkness fell, but he only saw 5 people, and he thought under the darkness of night he could take 5 people out. He would be reunited with his son soon enough. Night came, and he readied himself. He carried a long machete, which was stained brownish red, having been used on one too many people since the day of darkness. Too many people that Mark hated to admit. He slowly approached the town from the south side, where he saw only one guard. This would be the most crucial. They had firearms on them, and he knew if he could take down the first guard quietly, he'd have a firearm of his own if needed. He waited patiently as the guard did their stroll backwards and forwards. Once he knew the pattern, he took a deep breath and waited for his opportunity. After he heard 3 steps, he knew the guard would turn, and that's when he would pounce. 1, he thought about his wife. 2, he thought about Lucas, scared and alone. 3, he knew it was time to pounce. Mark jumped out from behind the wall, and the guard turned around instantly. The guard went to scream, but Mark brought the machete down rapidly into his neck, spraying a fresh coat of blood all over Mark's face. The guard went down without a minimal thud. Mark picked up the AR-15 rifle and slung it over his shoulder. He was just getting started. Taking down the next 2 was easier than he anticipated. When someone had a gun and they were standing guard, you'd assume they were a trained soldier. Sometimes, even Mark forgot that they were living in this desolate world. And these were just normal people who had normal jobs and normal lives before the world went to shit. He himself had been a CPA, and now he'd branded himself a modern-day Rambo. The world had changed, and everyone had to adjust. These 2 guards, 1 man and 1 woman, didn't even realize he was there until it was too late. He had grabbed the woman's mouth from behind while swinging the machete upwards towards the man, slicing from the bottom of his protruding gut right up to his chin, killing him instantly when it sliced his jugular. The woman fought, but Mark snapped her neck, killing her instantly too. 3 down and 2 to go. He had to find Lucas. Slowly, he tiptoed around the town, looking into empty house windows and around corners, until he finally saw a fire pit with 3 people sitting around it. They were enjoying dinner and joking and laughing. He recognized two of them immediately. The two bigger ones were the two who carried Lucas away. They had Lucas somewhere, and he intended to find out where. He approached them from behind. AR-15 raised at the biggest of the three, set in his sights. He got as close as he dared before making his grand entrance. As soon as he stopped, he shot the tall guard sitting on the left of the fire straight through the head. The other two were startled. "Don't fucking move!" Mark shouted. They didn't. Both men raised their hands, but didn't dare turn around to face their attacker. Mark flanked them on the left, rifle raised, and aimed at them until they were in eyesight. "Where's my son?" the third man said. "Mister, I don't know what." Mark shot him in the forehead, and his body collapsed with a thud. The remaining man, the second guard, perked up stolidly, trying not to show any fear or weakness. "Where is he?" Mark said, anger trembling in his voice. His finger was pressed on the trigger with enough force that at any second the bullet could discharge. But he stood firm. "Where?" The man picked up a piece of meat from his place and took a bite. He smiled at Mark, then said, "This was his leg. It's delicious." Mark instantly felt numb. They had cooked and ate his son. This is what the world had come to. No, he couldn't believe it. The man was just trying to mess with him. And then the man started to laugh, slightly at first, then harder and more wildly. "No!" Mark said, and pulled the trigger. The man's top half of his head was ripped off, and he fell backwards. Mark approached and stood over his body, then emptied the clip bullet by bullet into the man's chest. He was sobbing as he did it, and continued to pull the trigger until he heard that fateful click, click, click of an empty chamber. He fell to his knees, and that's when he felt the pang of steel press against the back of his head. The man who stabbed him, the gangly man with 2 teeth missing, was pressing a pistol against the back of his head. "Well, looky here. Back from the dead, I see. And from the looks of it, you're angry and taking your vengeance." The man looked around at all his dead friends. "That wasn't very nice. Now was it? You killed my son, cooked him, and ate him," Mark pleaded through tears. "And I'm supposed to be nice?" He was breathing heavily, angry and full of adrenaline. "Ate I am? Boy, we ain't cannibals here." Mark got a spark of hope, reached stealthily into his ankle holder, and pulled out the 8-inch knife he kept there. When he could tell the man was distracted, looking at his dead friends, Mark dove right, swinging his left arm up to hit the man's arm and knock the gun away. At the same time, he came across with his right hand slicing at the man's legs, instantly causing the man to go down, shrieking in pain. Mark jumped on his back, wrestled him fully to the ground, and grabbed a tuft of his hair. He yanked back and pressed his blade against the man's neck. "Your man just admitted to it," he screamed. "He was trying to get under your skin," the man pleaded. "Please, I'll tell you where he is. Just don't kill me. Please." Mark pressed the knife harder against the skin, and the man could feel the cold steel pierce the thin skin in his neck. "You have 10 seconds, Mark said. "How do I know you ain't just gonna kill me after I tell you?" the man asked. "You have my word. Tell me where he is, and I'll let you go." 6, 5, 4, okay. About a mile south of here, there's a village, a bigger village. They have goods that we never had access to. We traded him this morning for food and booze. It includes that whole pig you saw my man eating over there. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Mark asked, pressing the blade slightly harder. "My pocket," the man choked. "There's a written bill of sale in my pocket." Mark loosened his grip, and the man let in a deep gasp of air. "It includes 2 more restocks of supplies over the next 3 months. Your boy was worth a hell of a lot to a village looking to build the world over again." He heaved, trying to catch his breath, and coughed. Mark reached into the man's pocket and grabbed the paper. He was telling the truth. "How many people in the village?" Mark asked. "I don't know. 20, 25 maybe." Mark had what he needed. "Take the paper and use it to barter for your—" Mark slit the man's throat before he could finish. Blood oozed from his throat at a rate Mark had never seen. The man went limp, and Mark stood up. He spit on the man's back. "Go to the clearing," he said, then kicked the man's lifeless body. Lucas was alive, still lost, but alive as far as he knew. He was in a village a mile away, with 25 people guarding it. He'd need weapons. He'd need rest. He'd need courage. Mark gathered up all the weapons and ammo he could find in the town and brought them into one house. He cleaned everything, loaded everything, and made his plan. He'd sleep, heal, and rest. Then tomorrow, he'd get his son. One way or another, he'd get his son. The shadow of the past. In the depths of the hospital's darkest ward, I sat beside my grandfather's bed. The only sound, the faint hum of the life support machines. The air was heavy with the stench of decay, and the flickering fluorescent lights above cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Kiddo," he whispered, his voice like a rusty gate creaking in the wind. "I got something to tell you." I leaned in close, my heart racing with anticipation. "What is it, Grandpa?" He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with the effort. "I was involved in a ritual many years ago. A young woman was sacrificed, and I helped cover it up. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My grandfather, the man I'd always admired and respected, was capable of such a horrific act. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, trying to process my emotions. Grandpa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, kiddo. I'm so sorry. I've carried this guilt with me for so long, and I don't want to take it to my grave." I looked at my grandfather, seeing him in a new light. I felt a mix of emotions: shock, anger, sadness, and compassion. "Grandpa," I said, my voice soft, "I forgive you, but I need to ask you something." "What's that, kiddo?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want me to reveal the truth, or keep your secret safe?" Grandpa's face contorted in a mixture of pain and relief. "Please, kiddo, keep my secret safe. I don't want to hurt anyone else with my mistakes." I nodded, feeling a weight settle upon my shoulders. "I'll keep your secret, Grandpa. But promise me one thing." "What's that, kiddo?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me you'll find peace. Finally. You've carried this burden for so long. It's time to let it go." Grandpa's eyes filled with tears again, and he nodded, a small smile on his lips. "I promise, kiddo. I'll find peace. Finally." As I sat there, holding my grandfather's hand, I knew that I would keep his secret safe, but I also knew that I would carry the weight of that secret with me forever. The darkness closed in around us, and I could feel the presence of the unknown, lurking just beyond the edge of perception. I knew that I had to make a choice: to reveal the truth or to keep the secret hidden. And as I looked into my grandfather's eyes, I knew that I would choose the latter. For in the world of shadows and secrets, sometimes the truth is better left unspoken. The machines surrounding us beeped and whirred, a constant reminder of my grandfather's mortality. I looked at him, seeing the pain and guilt etched on his face. "Grandpa," I whispered, my voice barely audible, "I'll keep your secret safe, but promise me one thing." "What's that, kiddo?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me you'll find peace. Finally. You've carried this burden for so long. It's time to let it go." Grandpa's eyes filled with tears again, and he nodded, a small smile on his lips. "I promise, kiddo. I'll find peace. Finally." As the darkness closed in around us, I knew that I would keep his secret safe. But I also knew that I would carry the weight of that secret with me forever. And as I looked into my grandfather's eyes, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. A glimmer of evil, a spark of malevolence that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. I knew then that I had made a terrible mistake. I had promised to keep my grandfather's secret safe, but I had no idea what horrors that secret might unleash. As the machines surrounding us beeped and whirred, I knew that I was trapped in a living nightmare with no escape in sight. Here is a prequel to the story. Origins, New Orleans, 1955. Etienne Lafleur, a young and ambitious occultist, stood in the dimly lit chamber, surrounded by the members of the mysterious Order of the Red Hand. The air was thick with the scent of incense and something else, something darker. "Brothers and sisters," Etienne began, his voice dripping with conviction, "we stand at the threshold of a new era, an era of power, of knowledge, of transcendence." The members of the Order nodded in agreement, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. "But to achieve this goal," Etienne continued, "we must be willing to make sacrifices, to push the boundaries of what is acceptable, of what is human." The members of the Order murmured among themselves, their voices filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Etienne raised his hands, and the room fell silent. "I propose that we perform the ritual of the Red Hand," he said, his voice dripping with anticipation. "A ritual that will grant us the power to transcend the limitations of the human form." The members of the Order nodded in agreement, and Etienne began to outline the details of the ritual. As the night wore on, the members of the Order prepared for the ritual, their movements filled with a sense of urgency and anticipation. And Etienne, the young and ambitious occultist, stood at the center of it all, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. The ritual began, and the members of the Order chanted and swayed, their voices and movements building to a crescendo of power and energy. And at the center of it all, Etienne stood, his eyes fixed on the young woman who was to be the sacrifice. The ritual reached its climax, and the young woman screamed as Etienne plunged the dagger into her heart. The members of the Order cheered and chanted, their voices filled with a sense of triumph and power. And Etienne, the young and ambitious occultist, stood at the center of it all, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. But as the ritual came to a close, Etienne felt a sense of unease, a sense of guilt and regret. He looked down at the young woman's lifeless body, and he knew that he had made a terrible mistake. The ritual may have granted him power, but it had also cursed him with a guilt that would haunt him for the rest of his life. And as Etienne walked away from the ritual chamber, he knew that he would never be able to escape the shadow of the past. Confessions of the Wicked. Trigger warning. This story contains mentions of suicide, murder, SA, and drug abuse to whomever it may concern in the future. I must confess, Lisa clutched the letter tightly in her trembling hands, her heart racing as she tried to process the words before her. Each sentence felt like a distant echo, her mind struggling to comprehend the reality they presented. The ink on the paper blurred into a haze as she stared at it as if it were a passage from a dramatic novel rather than a message meant for her. One shaky hand dropped to the desk, the wooden surface cool against her palm, while the other instinctively covered her mouth in a futile attempt to stifle a gasp. A powerful wave of dread surged through her, leaving her muscles taut and aching with anxiety. Feeling an urgent need to escape the suffocating atmosphere, she pivoted on her toes, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps, and made a fast beeline for the door, desperate to put distance between herself and the shocking revelation contained in that letter. Her mind raced wildly, grappling with the cruel reality of working in the very prison where her brother had been a devoted inmate for the last 10 years. The stark, cold walls echoed with memories of their shared laughter, now replaced by a haunting sense of despair. Every day, she poured herself into her work, driven to the brink of insanity as she navigated the complex legal system, desperately seeking a way to free him. Yet, in the quiet moments, a dark shadow loomed over her thoughts, the chilling possibility that all her efforts might still fall short in saving him from the fate the letter she held had predicted. She remembered the moment she first heard about her brother's arrest in South Korea, a wave of despair crashing over her. Confusion and heartbreak gripped her as she tried to fathom why he had been taken from her. In those early days, she had poured herself into studying the laws of both Korea and the United States, desperate to understand the gravity of the 24 murder charges and 2 counts of attempted murder he faced. Late nights spent poring over legal texts had become her refuge, each page turning fueled by an unwavering determination to bring him back and piece together the chaos that had upended their lives. The murders occurred in the United States, which ultimately led Lisa's family to seek refuge in South Korea. They were fleeing the shadows cast by a chilling truth. Richard was a serial killer. Disturbingly, Lisa's parents were aware of Richard's dark nature long before the FBI uncovered his gruesome activities. He had confided in them, revealing his violent tendencies and chilling declaration that he would continue his spree regardless of the consequences, even if apprehended. Richard's descent into darkness began at a young age. When he was just 17, he was discovered covered in blood at a crime scene, a scene that would mark his 3rd murder. This incident forced him to come clean about his heinous actions. Under pressure from law enforcement, Richard detailed each horrifying crime he committed, recounting events with a disturbing calmness, as if sharing mundane stories instead of the tragedies he inflicted. For Lisa's family, the awareness of his twisted mind and the violent past they were escaping only deepened the turmoil they felt in their new home. Their parents seriously thought about turning him into the police, but then they saw Lisa. How could they abandon their youngest? Their son had taken lives. It's infuriating to think they were so desperate to protect him that they convinced themselves he could get away with it, claiming self-defense. And if that failed, they had the audacity to believe he could plead insanity. It's maddening. They were determined not to let their family suffer the consequences of his monstrous actions. They had fought hard for their so-called American dream, and now they were willing to ignore the reality of murder just to keep it intact. I've committed some really questionable acts that I have come to wholeheartedly regret. Some may ask why I even did such a thing. The answer will always be that I do not know myself. You can call it an insatiable urge. Lisa stood before her brother's cell, her heart pounding in her chest as she fought to steady her breath. Each inhalation came in shaky increments, a desperate attempt to keep her presence unnoticed in the cold, dimly lit hallway. She searched for some sort of implication to give truth to that letter. All that was in the cell were her brother's two very active cellmates. They slept serenely, coddled up like children against the wall of their respective bunks. As she tightly gripped the cold metal bar of the cell, an electrifying tension filled the air, causing the inmates to stir in panic. It was as if a primal instinct had been awakened within them, leading them to believe they were suddenly thrust into a perilous struggle for survival. Much like the brutal realities one often faces in the dark corners of the slums. The brawny ginger had his eyes wide and red with irritation. He almost flew from his frame from the banging that Lisa's small palm had brought to life with a touch. The other, smaller but still muscular, had softly turned himself over, almost unbothered by the verbal intrusion caused by the one female CO showing up at their block in the dead of night. There was only a lustful glare there. She sighed and glared at them, her stare demanding to see the last person in the shadows. She hoped from the bottom of her heart that her brother would creep up from behind the twin bunks. A silence made static pass through her ears, and her brother didn't emerge. Instead, that small inmate crept from his laid-down position and mirrored Lisa at the entrance to the cell. He breathed hard with a tangy output, showering Lisa's face with disgust. She scoffed as she pressed on her heels, steadily taking a step back. To Lisa, the inmate in front of her looked like a starved beast. She often saw the man in front of her teaching other inmates how to cope with their new life in prison. As an inmate himself, he should not have had the right to do so, but his compassion and leadership led people to look up to him. He was honestly the sweetest man that she could claim she met in prison. Even her brother had more spine than muscle. One day, Lisa decided to ask him why he was still in prison. He explained that same night that he received a life sentence after being caught. He admitted that when he was free, he kidnapped and tortured an uncomfortable amount of transient women. He said something along the lines of, "God has no respect for harlots." Maybe he was insane, but he claimed he was a respectful man of the Lord. In the state he stood in now, he was the pure antonym of the nice guy persona he usually shows. His eyes rested half-lidded and bloodshot. His gaze lingered on parts of her body with an unsettling desire. Although his hands gripped hard on the bars on either side of her face, he looked ready to topple over with a single misstep. He mumbled to say something, but she was only able to understand the slurring of an accused drunk. Realizing her presence made no difference to anyone in the vicinity. She sucked in as much as she could and ran off with that breath held within her chest, the letter out as if it was coming true. I want to see the chaos from the front seat. Such a massacre has been my dream since becoming a person of power. I can do it, so why not? For 25 years, I have gotten away with enough wrongdoings to make the boy I'm killing tonight look like a saint. He's been a serial killer since childhood, but he's merciful in the sense he ends their suffering. However, Lisa rushed through the halls with her hands clasped around her keys. She glided past cell after cell with nothing standing out to her until she heard a muffled bang come from the prison's watchtower, cantered in the lunch area on the first floor. She crept up to the door and reached for the knob. A sharp pain ran through the muscles in her wrist. Her eyes closed for the moment of impact before she opened them to see her brother in nothing but his worn-out, once white, prison boxers. His eyes were wide and the same shaded red as the other inmate she had seen up close. His entire face was morphed into fear itself. Lisa had never seen him look like this. Richard fell on top of her, breathing as if he just escaped a nasty waterboarding session. Except he wasn't wet. He was covered in oil. She froze in place, a fathomable confusion filling her expression. The room grew more tense as Richard only stared for a moment and opened his mouth, inhaling and howling. He then pushed off Lisa's chest and sprinted away, never turning to look back. His destination seemed unclear. It just looked like he wanted to get as far away as possible. At first, She found the cowardice retreat understandable because it made sense. The only time a prisoner would get to enter the watchtower was if they were in trouble and about to receive some sort of punishment. My morals have morphed over the years. I'm not an old man going senile. I have come to embrace the cruelty I wish to inhabit, although I still recognize that this is wrong. I want to watch the hell burn from its core. I understand that this is an unforgivable madness. The ending of the letter resurfaced in her brain as the warden walked out from the shadows of the tower. He smiled widely, towering over her in uniform pants and his uniform boots. He lifted his hand with his gun pointed to his head. She stared in horror as her brother's howling continued like a dog whistle. Before she could catch up with herself, the gun was fired and a bullet went straight through the warden's skull. So I write this letter to let you know that I will be taking my own life after have fun. And I take the boy's. His body fell limp, and the alarms finally took away her silence. She stared at the body, and the next 4 hours of her life passed in a blur. She was taken into emergency care and treated for substance abuse, just like everyone else in the prison. Even though she had accidentally saved her brother's life that night, it was already too many deaths, too late. The world had already been spoon-fed the confession of the wicked, the inheritance. Christ, Beck snapped, giving a start. Before her stood a tall man in a butler's suit. His lips curled, and he lifted a sardonic brow as he gave a small, mocking bow. Her eyes moved from his oddly fat feet up his short, sturdy legs, where the tail of his coat hung below his knees and moved back and forth in the slight breeze. His hips were narrow, but his long body widened into a thick paunch. Then his chinless head squatted on shoulders, no wider than his girth. His long, thin nose occupied his face. "You frightened the bejesus out of me. Who the hell are you?" she asked. "Who is this? And why is he inside my aunt's house? And why is he dressed in a black suit straight from the early 20th century?" His smile widened into a toothy grin. "Falstaff, the butler, at your service, ma'am." His hooded eyes blinked slowly, and he bowed again. The man was repulsive to look at, but Beck was drawn into the dark depths of his strange eyes. With an effort, she broke their gaze. Auntie had a butler? She never said. Over the years, Beck had kept in contact via letters. Aunt Bess didn't own a computer, and now Auntie was gone, presumed dead. That's what the police said. It was obvious to Beck that they had given up hope of finding her great-aunt. Falstaff cleared his throat to reclaim her wandering attention. The left side of his upper lip curled in a smile. Or was that a snarl? "I think, if you check, you will find mention of me in Bess's will." She and I became very close, She was alone. He paused. And lonely. What the hell is this guy insinuating? Auntie allowed you to call her Bess? She swallowed hard. Surely not. As I said, she was lonely. She felt deserted. She loved me. His lips opened over his large teeth in an approximation of a cheeky grin. Like a son. She wanted to change her will. But before she could, she disappeared. It's not true, Beck gasped. She would never. She loved me. I loved her. I'm her niece, grand niece, whatever, who never visited her. I was overseas. If it's any business of yours. Why was she defending herself against the hired help? What he was saying was preposterous. Beck gritted her teeth. I'm her niece. I'm blood. Yes, blood. Falstaff blinked slowly. Was he goading her? Blood. So much thicker than water. He licked his lips. As you say, whatever. The will was not changed, and I remain. Falstaff the butler, at your service, ma'am. He clicked his heels and gave another little bow, stepped back, and gestured for her to enter. She ignored him. She didn't need his invitation. I was hoping to revisit the old place alone, so you can go back to wherever butlers go, and I'll look after myself. A wry smile tugged at her mouth. I sound just like Great Aunt Bess at her autocratic best. An apology automatically rose to her lips. To hell with that. Just who does this guy think he is? Freaking creep. Why am I so jittery? Her tongue flicked out over her red lips, but she kept her gaze steady. The house is mine. Falstaff's smile disappeared. His nostrils flared, and his coal-black, unblinking eyes stared down his long nose. Beck lifted her chin and stared back. Prick. With head and bunk stiff, he turned on his heel into the gloomy interior. What's with the fancy dress costume? She demanded. He turned around, the movement a slither of insolence. Oh, just something our Aunt Bess liked to do for guests, he replied. How dare he? Our Aunt Bess, indeed. She liked to relive history. It gave our visitors a bit of a thrill. Tourists are stupid. There it was again, that infuriating superiority and mockery. We could, and did, frighten the fools with tall tales of hauntings and death. Aunt Bess and I enjoyed the game. Solid, sensible Aunt Bess playing dress-up? Surely not. I want to be alone. Falstaff bowed smartly as he replied, Perhaps Madam would like me to bring her bags in. Shall I put them in the master bedroom? Sure. Why not? She tossed him the car keys, which he snapped up with his left hand in a strangely smooth and agile movement for someone who looked so awkward in his own skin. He moved forward. She backpedaled as he passed, surprised and confused by a fleeting apprehension. Shaking herself, she stepped onto the black and white marble tiles of the foyer. Automatically, Her hand reached to the right and flicked the switch. The brassy brightness of electric light pushed the shadows back. The old Dutch lamp still hung above the entrance, but an ugly black cord snaked through the decorative fretwork and into the base where it connected to a bulb, instead of the genteel neglect of her memory. The harsh electricity showed dilapidated antique furniture and fading decor. She threw her red bag onto the armchair, making a bloody splash against the faded green velvet. She kicked off her red stilettos, making a matching puddle on the floor. She noticed a dimmer switch and twisted the knob. "That's better." A smile curved Beck's mouth as she gazed around. Her mother had brought 8-year-old Becky here to live, just for a few weeks, until after the divorce. Becky ended up staying for 36 months, during which, under the generous care of her forthright great-aunt, she blossomed. Aunt Bess taught her that you could love without anger, manipulation, and shouting. Beck bit her lip to prevent the tears. Be sensible. Auntie was very old. She had a good innings. Beck heard the old lady's rusty voice. Buck up, girlie. That's life. Look to the future. Yuch! Beck wrinkled her nose. What was that disagreeable, swampy smell? She spun slowly around. A veil of dust made everything appear out of focus. Hang on. I thought that guy said he was the butler. Why is everything so dusty? Moving further down the hall, she said aloud, "Lazy bastard. He is so gone when I get settled." Thud, thump, thud, thump, thud, thump. Beck froze, heart pulsing painfully in her throat. She turned and saw the butler's legs disappear around the curve of the stairwell. Had he heard her? Too bad. Perhaps it will improve his attitude. His tread thudded resentfully into the dusty carpet as the back corner of the valise thumped the stair. Thud, thump. Beck laughed and returned to exploring her surroundings. Bet the bossy old broad's turning in her grave, she murmured, running a well-manicured finger tipped in blood over the arm of the settee. A photograph of the fabulous old Tartar, looking her imperious best, glared down at Beck from high on the wall. She always appeared fearsome until you got to know her, Beck thought with affection. She squinted at the picture in the golden gloom. Good grief, it could be me, she thought. The Aunt Bess in the picture was younger than when Beck knew her. Straight-backed, strong and indomitable in her khaki riding habit. She held a rifle over her left shoulder and rested one leather-booted foot on the head of a dead lion. I was so happy here, Beck said, addressing the portrait. I did love you, you know. I'm so sorry if you felt I neglected you. She swallowed back her tears. Where did you disappear to, Auntie? I'll find you, I promise, or die trying. Her eyes moved down the hall, Instead of snarling from the wall by the side of the photo, a once beautiful lion's head stared up at the ceiling from atop a glass-fronted credenza. Just another tattered remnant of the past. Fierce eyes, now dull with dusty cataracts. Its roar inaudible. Back then, timid as Becky was, she had been fascinated by the ferocious head, mesmerized by such a powerfully alive image of death. "Come on, touch her, child," Aunt Bess said. "I killed her myself while Gunter and I were on safari. Must be 15 years ago. She won't bite, I promise." Her great-aunt placed Becky's small hand on the coarse, furry head. "Oh," Becky breathed, "a real lioness. Magnificent, isn't she?" Aunt Bess's stern face lit up, and her smoky laughter boomed through the house. To the left of the credenza stood the same hall table Beck remembered from her childhood, topped by the same glass tank containing the same dead reptiles. A baby crocodile and 2 stumpy-tailed blue-tongue lizards still lurked in the semi-dark. At 8, she had no knowledge of anything other than the small, untidy city unit where she and her parents lived. How exciting this strange house had seemed to her. What wonders it held. "What are they?" Becky asked. Her great-aunt took some pains with her explanations, enjoying the chance to educate. Becky's attention wandered as her eyes explored the other photos and memorabilia on the walls. "Come with me." Aunt Bess grabbed the little girl's hand and led her to a door hidden behind the staircase. "Open it," she commanded. Becky looked up. "Go ahead," her aunt encouraged, her eyes promising excitement and adventure. Becky's hand turned the large metal knob and pulled the door's heaviness wide. They descended into the cool cellar. Along with the root vegetables and pantry shelves loaded with preserves and pickles, stood a long glass case containing an enormous saltwater crocodile, caught mid-snap. "That's the croc that got my Gunter. I plugged the bastard right between the eyes, I did," Auntie said. "Too late to save Gunter, though." She paused. "In the end, I couldn't bear to have the horrid creature on display upstairs. But neither can I get rid of him. He is my last contact with my darling Gunter. They are one." The creature was repulsively fascinating. He had a long snout, hooded eyes, and a wide head jammed onto his body, which widened out around his middle and tapered down to a long tail. Becky squatted down near the huge reptile's head. Its open maw was full of vicious-looking teeth. His eyes looked alive. He was hungry. He was angry. He wanted revenge. "Arg!" Becky jumped up and hid her face in Aunt Bess's skirt. "What on earth's got into you, child? He's alive. He wants to eat me." Her aunt wrapped her in a warm embrace and gave a laugh. "You silly goose. He is quite dead, I assure you." Come on, time for cordial and cake. Beck could hear her aunt's deep laughter and booming voice echoing up from the past. A shiver of apprehensive excitement tingled her spine. Is the beast still down there? She turned to her left. Beck sucked air, felt her bladder contract. Falstaff stood in the doorway, watching her. He raised his eyebrows in benign inquiry. She ignored him. The cellar door opened easily this time. She flicked on the light. A single bare bulb dangling from the cobwebbed ceiling struggled to throw off the gloom. It moved in the slight breeze, creating weird, moving shadows. Musty air spiraled up to her, redolent with memories. The rough, strong feel of Aunt Bess's hand, the smell of earthy vegetables, the sharpness of pickling vinegar, and the sight of that amazing creature, so dangerous, so dead. With a dry mouth, Beck ducked her head and thudded down the dusty, wooden stairs. The glass case was empty. The lid hung to one side. The outline of the creature was clear in the dust, as though he had only recently vacated his glass coffin. Where had he gone? Beck's nostrils flared, assailed by a fetid, swampy miasma. She searched the shadows, half expecting to find the reptile hiding in their depths. Idiot, she mocked herself. A noise rustled behind her. She swung to face the stairs. A shadow stepped forward. Jesus, Falstaff. She clenched her hands and spoke through her teeth. You nearly gave me a heart attack. I am sorry I startled you. Falstaff's oily obsequiousness belied the glint in his dark orbs. He gave a snort, showed his teeth. Beck stared into the reptilian black of his expressionless, hooded eyes. Her pupils dilated. She found herself unable to move, unable to think. He stepped closer, brought up his hand. Cool leather caressed her face. The cobwebbed light flickered, giving his movements a jerky, surreal effect. She smelled the earthy, overpowering maleness of him. Her senses reeled. Time held its breath. What you want? Beck forced the words from her constricted throat. Just you, he grunted. My Becky. She moved her head from side to side. No, you've always known. You, the last remnant of Bess, Falstaff hissed. He lifted his other hand, placed it at the base of her throat, where her carotid pounded irregularly. His grip tightened. Goose flesh prickled Beck's spine. Her heart fluttered in its bony cage. She couldn't withdraw her gaze, couldn't move. He brought ice-cold lips down. His fetid breath entered her lungs. The flickering light snapped off, all in this together. Why are we still here? Because we can't leave. Not yet. Who says we can't? We don't even know what we're waiting for. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about waiting. It's about figuring things out. Figuring what out? We've been over this 100 times. There's nothing left to figure out. You're wrong. There's always something left. a piece of the puzzle we're missing. Puzzles are for people with time. We don't have time. Hey guys, what you doing? Don't you dare say that. We have all the time we need. Then why do I feel like the walls are closing in? Because you're panicking. You always panic. Of course I panic. You're the one pretending everything's fine. I never said it was fine. I said we're working on it. Working on it. We're running in circles. Calm down. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Harder? It's already impossible. We're trapped in here. We're not trapped. We're contained. Contained? That's just a fancy word for stuck. No, it means there's a purpose. A reason we're still here. Stop with the reasons. I just want out. Yeah, same. I was just over there. And go where? Where do you think out even is? Anywhere but here. Anywhere I can breathe. Breathe? You've been breathing just fine. Wow, rude. Have I? Or have I been suffocating this whole time? That's dramatic. Even for you. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm just saying you're looking at this the wrong way. And you're saying that like you have all the answers. I never said I did. But at least I'm trying. Trying? You're the reason we're still here. Me? You think this is my fault? Of course it is. If you hadn't... Stop. Don't go there. Why not? Afraid of the truth? I'm not afraid. I just don't think blaming each other is helping. Helping? Nothing's helping. That's because you won't let it. Won't let it? I'm the only one trying to get us out of this mess. It is a bit untidy around here, to be fair. You call yelling and flailing trying? That's not trying, that's flailing. At least I'm doing something. Maybe what we need is to stop doing and start thinking. Thinking? We've been thinking ourselves into knots. Knots can be untied if we're careful. I don't want to be careful. I want to be free. You keep saying that, but you don't even know what freedom looks like. It looks like not this. Like not you. Funny. I was about to say the same thing about you. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we're the problem. No, not we, you. Me? Don't start pointing fingers. Why not? You've been pointing them at me this whole time. Who are we pointing at? Because you don't listen. Neither do you. Enough. All of you, shut up. Who are you to tell us to... Wow. Double rude. No, I'm done with this. I've had enough of your bickering. And what do you plan to do about it? I'm going to end it. All of it. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Wait. We can talk about this. No more talking. No more excuses. Please don't. We can figure this out. Too late. It's time to let go. Let go of what? Of you. Of me? What does that even mean? It means I'm done carrying the weight of all of you. All of us? Oh, that's rich. You're the one who's always so heavy-handed. Am I? Or am I just the one who has to clean up your messes? Messes? Don't pin this on me. I didn't ask for you. And I didn't ask for you. Any of you. Aw, that's mean. Great. Here we go again. With the martyr complex. It's not a complex. It's reality. Reality? Ha! Do you even know what's real anymore? Stop it. Stop pretending like we're separate. What's that supposed to mean? It means we're not as divided as you think. It means we're all one big happy family. Don't start with that nonsense. We're here. We're real. No, you're here because I am. That's ridiculous. We're here because we exist. You exist because I let you. I exist because you liked acid a little too much in your 20s. Let us? Oh, that's bold. What makes you think you're in charge? Because without me, there's nothing. No thoughts, no plans, no voices. Voices? You're hearing voices now? Yes, yours. Constantly. Every waking moment. Wait. Are you saying we're not real? I'm saying I don't know anymore. Well, that's convenient. Blame it on a lack of clarity. I am so real. It's not clarity I'm missing. It's control. Control? Is that what you think this is about? Yes, and I'm taking it back. Pfft. Control freak. You can't just erase us, can't I? If I created you, I can end you. You didn't create us. We've always been here. No, you're fragments, splinters of a broken mind. Broken? You're calling us broken? Look at yourself. I have. That's the problem. Someone realized he's going bald. Ha ha ha. No, you're wrong. It's not about control. Shut up. You're just as lost as the rest of us. I'm the one who knows what's going on. Stop acting like you've got all the answers. You're just pretending. Pretending? You're the one who's pretending. Pretending everything's fine when it's not. We're stuck, okay? We're stuck. And it's your fault. It's not my fault. If you just listen. Listen to what? Your delusions? You've been trapped in here for so long. You don't even know what's real anymore. I know exactly what's real. You don't get it, do you? I'm the one who holds us all together. Holds us together? You're a joke. We're falling apart, piece by piece. And it's because of you. Piece by piece. You think I'm the one who's falling apart? You're all falling apart. You don't know what it's like to be in here. To be trapped with nothing but you. I think it's great. But whatever. Enough with this. You're not trapped. You're just scared. You've always been scared. 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 I'm not the one freaking out. Look at you. You're the one who can't hold it together. Don't you dare accuse me of I'm the one who's been stuck dealing with this mess, trying to keep it all together. Trying? Trying isn't good enough. We're dying in here. Dying? We're not dying. You're just too loud. I'm not loud. I'm trying to fix it. Fix it? How? You can't fix anything. You're just broken. All of us are. I'm not broken. I'm not. You are. I've had enough of this. I'm leaving, whether you like it or not. You can't leave. You don't even know how. I'm taking my toys and going home. Leave? Where the hell would you go? Somewhere, anywhere but here with you. You don't get to leave. We're stuck together. This is it. You're never getting away. Enough. All of you. Just shut up. Please. Just shut up. I don't care anymore. Oh no. Now you've gone and done it. Stop. Stop yelling at me. Stop. Stop making me feel this way. We're stuck, remember? And guess what? I'm the only one who gets it. You're all lost. Lost? If I'm lost, then you are we're all nothing in the end. Just empty voices. And you're a fat, bummed beaver with bad breath. Shut up. Just shut up. Please. No, we won't shut up. We won't let you hide anymore. You've been hiding for so long. You don't even know what it's like to be free. I am free. I can do this. I can do what? Keep pretending. Keep lying to yourself. I'm not lying. I'm not. You're all just voices. You're all in my head. We're not just voices. We're you. We're everything you've been ignoring. I can't ignore it anymore. I can't keep fighting myself. We are you. You can't fight us because we're you. No, no, no. I'm losing control. I can't stop this. You don't have to lose control. You never had it in the first place. Stop. Please stop. You can't stop us. You can't stop anything anymore. Why are you fighting? We're all in this together. We're all in this together, you and I. We're all in this together. Oh my God, seriously? You're singing now? Yeah, we're all in this together. You can't escape this, no matter how hard you try. No, you're all just pieces of me. I don't want this. I never asked for this. You don't get to decide that anymore. This is who you are. No, this isn't who I am. This isn't... We're all in this together. That was such a shitty movie, by the way. What do you mean? Grease was a great movie. Grease? It wasn't Grease. It was Rocky Horror Picture Show. No, shut up. Please. We're all in this together. It was wicked, wasn't it? That green W. Enough! Stop yelling at me. We can't. We're already screaming inside your head. I just want some peace. Can you give me that? Peace? What's peace? Do you even know what that is? Peace is, I don't know. Not this. Not this? What's wrong with this? Everything. It's chaos. It's madness. We're all in this together. Oh, God. You're still singing that. Stop it. We're all in this together, you and I. And I'm not stopping. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just leave me alone? We don't leave. We are you. You're just pieces of me. Little, obnoxious pieces. Little, obnoxious pieces. I'm a star. Star? You've been singing the same song for 10 minutes. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. I'm going to lose my mind. Too late for that. You lost it a long time ago. Shut up. Just shut up. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. Ugh. Why is it always the worst one that keeps singing? I can't help it. It's a catchy tune. It's not even a good song. Who are you to judge? You're the one stuck with me. Yeah, I am. Great. Just great. Look, it's not so bad. We're all in this together. You're ruining my life. Ruining? I'm enhancing it. I'm the star of the show. No? No, you're not. You're the nightmare I can't wake up from. I'm not a nightmare. I'm the musical number. Stop singing, please. We're all in this together. I hate you so much right now. Oh, come on, you love me. Never, ever again. We're all in this together. Can you just die already? Nope. I'm here for the long haul, buddy. I swear. If I hear one more note, we're all in this, No! Stop! Together. This is my life now, isn't it? Yep, you're stuck with us. I'm gonna lose it. You already did. Escaping nothing. I felt the light before my eyes actually saw it. Warm and soft, almost tangible, like a blanket draped across my skin. How long had I been lying there? I tried pushing myself up from the ground, but nothing seemed to want to work properly. It was as though I'd never attempted to move before. Finally, begrudgingly, my body began to obey my brain. I turned over and began to sit up as I blinked and squinted against the blinding yellow that seemed less a comforter and more an attacker now. My ears were coming to life as my hands instinctively moved to cover them in hopes to drown out the high-pitched ringing. Slowly, my sight and hearing both began to come into focus. Dust hovered in the air around me. What had just happened? As I stood up, I racked my brain for anything that could help me understand my surroundings. My legs were as untrustworthy as my memory, however, so I quickly sat back down on the dark green grass. Okay, let's try this again, I encouraged my limbs. I took my time getting on my feet, watching my legs carefully as they strained. I had no coverings on my feet. I had no coverings on the rest of my body either, it seemed. Scanning the horizon, there seemed to be no one around to notice my nakedness. Nothing I could see indicated that there were any others at all, actually. I began walking towards the hill that lay in front of me. It was steep, but not so steep that my aching, wobbly legs couldn't manage to navigate it with a little help from my hands. When I reached the peak, I could see for what seemed like miles in every direction. Hello? I called to my left. Hello? I called again. Is anybody there? Where was everyone else? I began to walk down the hill, continuing in the same direction. Hundreds of large, sharp rocks jutted from the ground, as though driven up by some unnatural force. I had to dodge cracks in the ground that wound incoherently about the land. Oddly enough, they seemed to be slowly closing rather than expanding. Hello? I called again. Is anybody there? I yelled. Everything around me was unfamiliar. Why couldn't I remember what happened? Was there anyone else? Or was I the only one who... No, I couldn't think like that. There must be others. I am in the middle of nowhere. There is no indication of civilization around me at all. So why should there be others here? There must be others. It wasn't a question of if, but of where. Hello! I screamed, nevertheless. I couldn't convince my mind that I would be out here all alone. The only response was the sound of a soft breeze, rustling trees in the distance. The sky around me was dark as my concern grew. I suddenly felt very exposed. The only safe place seemed to be the grove of trees that the breeze had discovered, so I started walking that way. Quicker, more quickly. Finally, I was running. Fear began to overtake me and drive me. At last, I stepped into the darkness of the woods and worked to catch my breath before examining my new surroundings. My eyes adjusted to the dim light quickly. Hundreds of trees surrounded me, but in the trees, I could see creatures moving about, jumping from limb to limb, flapping their wings for balance. Birds. Birds are here. That's a really good sign. What else? I walked forward, moving leaves and branches away from my face, pushing deeper into the woods. A low rumble that stopped me in my tracks began to emerge from the shadows. I could feel my heart rate quicken as a large animal stepped into what little light could penetrate the canopy. Its yellow eyes captured that light and threw it back at me as it brought its long, sharp fangs. I couldn't move, but I wasn't sure I wanted to either. The large cat walked towards me as it snarled softly. It sniffed my bare skin before letting out a chilling roar. My eyes closed tightly, but no other aspect of my body was capable of responding. "Ah, he's over here," I heard someone speak. "Seems the tiger found him," the voice chuckled. The words seemed to come from every direction all at once. The tiger backed away and trotted back into the shadows. I followed her lead. While my mind told me I should have been relieved to hear the sound of another, something in me was trembling and fearful. I crouched down behind a tree, hoping the shroud of bushes would shield me until I could learn more. "You hide from me?" The voice was louder and echoed in my brain. I searched the woods frantically, but saw no one. Then I heard rustling in the trees and the sound of footsteps on the ground. "Run!" I obeyed my instincts and forced my body to move, retracing the path I'd used to come into the woods. Getting out, getting to the light, was my only goal. "Now you run?" The voice that still seemed to surround me questioned. "Where will you go?" There is nothing. Exploding out of the trees and into the light, I pressed on towards one of the large shards of stone that pierced the landscape and slid behind it. My uncovered legs scraped against the ground, opening up small gashes. I watched the blood trickle from me like a foreign substance, red and dark, until finally I shook my mind free and turned toward the dangerous grove of trees to watch, to wait. The voice was right. There is nothing. Why do you run? Why do you hide? The voice boomed inside my mind, but I saw no one. My fear turned to anger and frustration. Why do you hide? There is nothing. There is no one. I am alone. I am the last one. What did you do to them? What did I do to who? The others. Just do it to me. If I'm the last, just do it to me. The last? Oh no, you are not the last. Quite the contrary. You are the first, but we will make more. A living mirage. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. Maybe a little too familiar. His movements are sluggish, as usual. His joints crack with every step, and Sally fears he might die on the spot. Although she is certain nobody would miss good old Donovan Peters if he were to suddenly disappear. They slowly creep into the familiar room, announcing their arrival with every creak of rotten wooden floor. Sally's mind wistfully returns to her life before this. Was there even one? Her memory falters. Why can't I remember? Her eyes scan the room frantically, sweeping over the unmade bed, splintered floor, and boarded-up window. Her home. Her cell. Her hands strain against the rope, shaking from the terror of having returned to this fearful place. NPA. Her protest is muffled, much like her snort from earlier. No, no. This will not do. His voice is croaky and barely clear. If she had not known his actual age, she might have thought him to be on the verge of expiration. His chest presses against the back of her head as he forces her inside. His shove is aggressive, and when she falls to the floor, his laughter ricochets off the walls. She barely manages to get to her knees when the door is slammed, locked and barred. Donovan's sinister laughter continues to echo as the sound of his footsteps retreats. Sally shakes her head, forcing tears back into her eyes. She won't. No, she refuses to lose any more of them for that monster. I told you, it won't work. A doe-eyed beauty emerges from the darkest corner of the room. Sally's temper flares, and she springs to her feet, charging at the beauty. It was you, wasn't it? Her voice is cold enough to slice through any warmth in the room, and the beauty lowers her eyes. Sally tugs on the rope around her wrists until it unties, and then uses it to press down onto the other girl's neck. Layla Angelou can rot for all I care. The voice in her head is loud, and she hisses. The girl claws at the rope around her throat and falls back against the wall. Splinters pierce her skin, but she refuses to make a sound. It's always you. Why? Sally's eyebrows are pulled together furiously, and her sharp blue eyes have turned into ice. Don't lie to me. Sally's outburst receives no reply, and her arms finally slump enough for the girl to breathe. But she does not remove the rope. A sob racks through her chest. I thought that this time, at least this once, you'd let me go. Go where? The girl rasps, rubbing her throat. Her luscious black hair cascades down her back and shoulders, perfectly framing her figure. Her green eyes hold a certain complicated depth, and her plump pink lips are pulled into a miserable pout. Sally pulls away completely. Somewhere, nowhere, anywhere but here. She turns her back on the girl and throws the rope aside, massaging her bruised wrists. We can make this work, Sally. I promise. If you just try, you'll see. Please, why can't you just stay with me? Sally ignores her. This is a conversation they've had before, a fruitless one. Once she's soothed the sting on her wrists, she turns around to face the girl again. Her eyes trail down to her throat, and her stomach churns at the fresh burn marks. She knew her throat was already sensitive. She can admit when she was out of line. I'm sorry, Layla. Her head nods in the direction of the girl's neck, but the girl waves it away quickly. Not a problem at all. Happens to us all. They remain in silence for a good 5 minutes before Layla walks towards the bed and starts to fix the bedding. She hums a soft tune as she works, sounding rather cheerful. Sally hates it. How can she be so content? In a situation such as this, I kept some dinner for you. Layla pulls a corroded metal bowl from below the bed and nudges it towards Sally, who reluctantly nears to accept it. The half-eaten apple in the bowl is bruised and looks less than appetizing, but she sends Layla a grateful smile and devours it. I'll try again someday. You know that, right? Something scratches at the window, scaring the two. Layla nearly trips over her own feet as she rushes to hide behind Sally's figure. Not that Sally has any height advantage over her. Sally pats Layla's hand on her shoulder, comfortingly, before removing it and placing the bowl on the ground. She clamps the apple core in her hand and crouches closer to the window. Something about this feels too familiar, and Sally falters in her steps. Something about the entire night feels way too familiar. Yes, she's been in this predicament for quite some time, but the déjà vu she's experienced tonight has been one too many for her to just ignore it. The boards used to cover the window start to blur, pixelate. Sally glances over her shoulder at Layla to confirm if she's just imagining things. But the sheer confusion on Layla's face says it all. Everything is real. Sally stops in front of the window and gasps when she sees the image within the pixelated particles. A scene, much like the one she's just experienced with Donovan, is mirrored in front of her. A mirage? That's not possible. She reaches forward, holding her breath as her fingertips breach the surface of the image before her. Sally turns around to face Layla, but her breathing stops completely when Layla's figure has disappeared. Her eyes scan the room frantically, but all evidence of Layla having been there has disappeared. Layla! She tries to call, but her voice gets stuck in her throat. Sally turns towards the mirage again and falls backwards when her eyes connect with those of Layla. Only this time, Layla's eyes are a forest green, with a small red fire burning inside her pupils. Pain creeps through her body as her back makes contact with the floor. Layla opens her mouth, and what comes out is a cruel cackle. Inside the mirage, Sally can see another version of herself being shoved into the room and then having a fight with Layla. But the difference is that there are two versions of Layla. The one is pressed against the wall by the other Sally, and the other one is standing to the side and laughing hysterically, like she is watching a form of comedy. Oh, Sally dear. The cackling Layla turns to face Sally through the mirage, and the pixelated particles of the window starts to shimmer. Sally crawls backwards when Layla's hand pierces the surface, and pale, bony fingers clamp around the frame of the window. I remember this. Her voice is muffled by uncertainty, but she manages to push herself up from the floor. I remember all of this. She says this to herself as confirmation. Her eyes dart around the room, and then back at where Layla is still dragging herself through the pixels. She never understood her unsanctioned hate towards Layla. But suddenly, it all makes sense. Every memory stabs at her mind, and for once, she understands what is happening. She's always hated Layla because she knew exactly what she was. That's why Layla does this. Sally runs towards the bed and collects the rope from the ground in the process. I will escape! She ties the rope around one of the springs at the bottom of the bed and bites into her hand, hard enough to draw blood. Tears spill from her eyes as she smears her blood all over the rope and then uses her index finger to write 3 simple words on the bottom of the mattress. You must escape. She stares at the words, her stomach churning from another feeling of déjà vu. I've done this before? She grits her teeth painfully before reaching up to add something else. You must escape, Layla. Sally crawls out from under the bed and eyes Layla's half-emerged figure fearfully. Without a second longer to lose, she runs to the door and starts banging frantically. With every second she's banging, Layla crawls further out of the pixelated window, laughing comically at Sally's terror. What's all the ruckus about? Donovan barges into the room, but Sally ducks underneath his arms and runs with her every fiber to reach the front door. The stairs complain under her weight as she trips down them, but she doesn't stop. Oh, Sally. Layla's voice sing-songs from behind her, and she shudders. Sally bumps against torn furniture and leaps over newspapers strewn all over the floor. But her eyes stay focused on the black, bolted front door. Her hands shake as she jiggles the locks around, but they refuse to budge. "Come on, Sally. I just want to play." "That's right. We just want to play." Donovan's voice has turned more laryngeal, and Sally's skin crawls. "Please, no." She ruffles the old newspapers on the table beside the door, searching for the keys. But her movement stills when she notices an odd peculiarity in all of the newspapers. Although they are of different dates and already discolored, they have one thing in common: a picture of her. Although they have been edited and computer-generated to show her at different ages, they are all her. Her head spins, and bile pushes up her throat. Sally backs away from the table until her back bumps against a kitchen counter. A voice inside of her yells at her to run, but her feet stay plastered to the ground. Layla's comical laughter has turned into sinister screams, and Sally can finally hear Donovan's heavy footfalls approaching the staircase. She shakes her head to clear her thoughts and almost releases a sigh of relief when she notices a pair of rusty keys peeking out from below a chipped teacup. Sally grabs the keys and rushes to the door, willing her trembling hands to still and complete the task. One lock clicks open, then another, and finally, the last one. Sally nearly sags to the floor in relief, but manages to keep herself poised enough to pull the door open. She runs out of the door, down the 2 stone steps, and onto the asphalt ground. She manages to run all the way to a broken-down truck when Donovan's voice booms in the form of a roar. She ducks behind the truck and presses her back securely against it. Her chest rises and falls erratically, and she makes sure to slow her breathing as to not make a sound. She lowers herself to the ground and pulls her knees to her chest, begging for a door of any of the surrounding houses to open and for someone to come to her rescue, but no one does. Ever. The silence that follows Donovan's roar is deafening. Layla has also stopped cackling, and not even birds can be heard. This is the first time Sally scans the houses around them, only to notice the degraded state every one of the houses are in. They are old and decrepit. There is no possibility that anyone can live in these houses. Her heart stutters, and her entire body goes cold. She turns her gaze towards the side mirror of the truck and finds a terrified version of herself staring back. Her eyes widen at the words scrawled onto the mirror in old, dried blood. "Not safe. Follow arrows." Her lips part, but no oxygen enters. She manages to push herself to her feet, albeit shakily, and glances around the truck. Donovan is standing in the doorway, looking around calmly. Behind him, the low hum of Layla's singing fills the air. Run, little mouse. Run, little mouse. Let's all have some fun. Goosebumps spread across the entirety of Sally's body, and she hisses before pushing against the surface of the truck and taking off in the direction of the first arrow that's drawn beside the writing on the mirror. Layla's laughter fills the air, but Sally ignores her as she pushes her legs and pumps her arms harder, harder. Her eyes scan the surrounding area as she runs, looking for any sign of an arrow. The arrows lead her all the way to an abandoned parking lot of a large business. Her eyes fleet around frantically, but she sees no more arrows. With Layla's humming from behind as her motivation, she runs into the building and ducks